Hello, my girls, gays, theys, and the men who hold our drinks for us. We are back. I am Reb Maisel, as always, your host of the Rebuttal Podcast, my child, my infant, my protege, okay? My story. As always, as you know, our goal here at Rebuttal Incorporated is to bring you the calamity, the chaos in the legal field. Specifically, my goal, my dream for this podcast was to, como se dice, show you guys that anything you can do, the legal field can do better. Meaning that all of these big, viral, famous true crime stories, right? Really definitely have a reason for being viral, for being famous, for being well-known, notorious, if you will. Okay. Have about 17 too many documentaries and biopics and podcast episodes about them. All right. We know them. You could name them right now. I started this podcast not to show that those cases were necessarily not interesting. It was to show that, oh my dear Jesus, golly God, that is the tip of the iceberg, like the toenail top of the iceberg. Okay. If the entire iceberg is a body, okay, and the top of it, all right, is like someone's foot, like the iceberg's foot. Okay. There's an entire cuerpo. There's a whole body under there. All right. That you need to look at, that you need to see, that none of these producers, people, whomsoever, are privy to. And it's not because of their lack of research or investigation. It's honest to God because sometimes you just got to be part of the fucking club that is the legal field in order to really grasp and understand and pick out the audacious shit that goes on, the funny, the interesting, the intriguing shit that goes on. And unfortunately, a lot of it doesn't make the news, like the news that all of y'all see. Yeah, it makes our news. We have our own news sites, right? Because we're just so exclusive. We're like a club. But unfortunately, it doesn't expand out, or even to the extent that it does, it's kind of like a one-off in the news cycle, and then that's it. When in reality, we're over here begging for anything for anyone to pick this up, right? We're like mentioning the stories to our friends, and they're like, cool, okay, psycho, okay, crazy. And we're like, 100%. So I made this podcast for that. You may not notice, okay, if you are a YouTube watcher, hello, hi, how are you? Love you so much. I am standing. That's weird, right? Normally I'm sat. I am fucking sat. This time for this fucking sode, for this goddamn sode, y'all are going to be sat and I'm going to be speaking. I am on my soapbox, my box that is soapy, because this episode is everything that I could want and more from what I just described to you. Okay? Oh, you mean like the cases that should absolutely have been made into movies? Okay? Some Jordan Belfort shit, some Wolf of Wall Street kind of shit, like that type of movie, but with lawyers, right, involved, like things like that. Okay, this is that. This is that. It has every element of ridiculousness and tomfoolery. It just oils my fucking nuggets. It oils my goddamn nuggets. I cannot wait for you guys to talk about this with me, at me, about me. I'm just jazzed. Okay, so let's fucking get into it. There's so much more room for activities. Watch me listen to this back and realize that it fucked the sound up. Amazing, perfect, beautiful, gorgeous. Before we get into it, about it, adjacent to it, etc., I fixed my fucking light. We're ready to fucking ride. What has been happening in my life? Okay, here's one. I don't know what has been in the water, the air, okay, the drinking cups, all right, that these male attorneys have been consuming lately, right? I would love to say it's a specific age group, right? Like I'm sure you're thinking like boomer, like old, like partners, whatever, born in a different time type shit. No, unfortunately, it's really a plight. It's a plague. It's a disease that's hitting all of them at once. I don't know what has been in the agua, right? I don't know if it's like divorce season for them. I don't know if all of their hot young wives are like taking the money and running. I don't know if their kids are getting DUIs, right? Is it DUI season? Like, I don't get it. But all of these fucking lawyers, egotistical sons of bitches. And pardon my French, but that's like the best way I can describe it. I would love for all of you in that category, you SOBs, to share your calendars with me, right? Your outlook, if you will. Anytime it starts looking like the season of maybe divorces, right? Like your wife is stepping out on you with the tennis instructor, your children are maybe getting DUIs, okay, and calling you up to fix it, but you're a bankruptcy attorney and not really in criminal, so you can't really fucking help them and they have to pay a fine. It's embarrassing and everyone at the country club talks shit about you. Yeah, if it's the season for that shit, send out an evite, right? Hop on a Zoom and let us all know. Because if I am your fucking opposing counsel, okay, and I join a ring ring call with you and you're going to have absolutely baseless toddlertude, guess what? You want to play the sass game? I can play it better, babes. Okay, I can play it so much better. You want to do active aggression? I can do passive, active, blatant, physical. Just kidding. Yeah, lately, it has not just been me, okay? And I know like everyone, every woman, literally every woman who even mildly talks about the misogyny in this field, right, goes into it, is like, hey, yeah, like it's pretty fucking shitty. This one time, like yesterday, this happened, right? Blah, 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 blah. People will be like, nah, you just like you're a victim. You're just playing the victim card. Blah, blah, blah. It's like queens, kings. If I ranted like this every single time I was hit with misogyny, sexism in this field from anywhere and everywhere, I wouldn't stop speaking. I wouldn't stop reading. You guys wouldn't get an episode, which is lame in the membrane. Okay. It's not what you watch. It's not why I listen or you listen or I do this. Okay. I don't need to complain about this shit for it to be real. And I don't need to complain about it to win against it, to beat it every day, to show anyone who speaks to any female like that, woman like that in this field or otherwise, that their tantrum will never win in the end. It just won't, right? You can't practice law off a tantrum. Many men do and have done for a very long time, but ultimately and eventually, karma comes back around like a boomerang to your schnoz, to your noggin, and shuts you up. Not forever, unfortunately, right? We can only hold your lips together for so fucking long, okay, before karma starts saying, God damn, I need a break from this fucking guy too. But I just want to share with you guys that it has been, 'tis the fucking season for this shit. But also for me, bless, God fucking bless. I work with fantastic people who are, so quick to jump to basically bark, like literally like they're like, get behind me, like a cage fighting dog. Like they're like, get behind us. And I'm like, I'm good. I can deal with it. They're like, no, it's on. Like it's just been amazing. I worked with amazing people who fucking get it and who fucking like, it's very much not me dealing with it by myself or anything. Yes, the nature of this job is to have to deal with it by yourself, but it's sure is fun when something like that goes down, specifically in email form, and then the opposing counsel unfortunately thinks that CCing one of the partners on the case with me was a good plan, right? Yeah, and it finds out very quickly that it's fucking not, and then gets chewed out by several partners who decide to jump in the thread before I even have read the email. I mean, obsessed, right? Obsessed. My best friend in the law, she is dealing with a guy who quite literally like screams, rants, loses his shit in hearings, on the phone with her, like literally just like jawing, like anything you can equate, like literally toddler syndrome. Like that's it. That's why, like my thing, as a female attorney, it's like I've never really said that I never want children, right? Like I've never been like, no, never, I never want kids, ever. Like, yes, there was a period of my time where I didn't think it was going to happen. I do think that it might, like it potentially might, but I think we hold off for so long. Yes, partially because like the nature of the game, nature of the job, but like also because like I already babysit so many adult children. I have to gentle parent so many middle-aged men going home to their wife who slept with the gardener. And I think that I should get truly child support for that, not necessarily from the wife, but at least from the community property pot, right? For sure. I should definitely be able to go to their kids' graduation, right? Like, I feel like I've had a hand in dealing with their dad on the job while they're allowed to, like, run around with their friends and do kid things and, hopefully make varsity on soccer. Like, I'm there for that. Claps and snaps, right? I want them to know exactly who it is who's making their father so humbled every day. Hopefully it doesn't blow back on them. It probably fucking does because, rarely do these men make good parents. But hey, I'm holding out, right? If they need a sitter, let me fucking know. But my hands are currently full. I'm booked. I'm booked and biz. Okay, booked and busy. Billing, billable hours, right? I'm billing for their rants when they yell at me on the phone. And oftentimes I've even cut in to say, hey, so my client does not absolutely pay for your right to yell at me or vent your issues, right? So I'm going to get off this phone unless you start speaking about the thing we're supposed to speak about, right? Because I'm not going to bill for this, but I also have other shit to do, etc. So this case that I'm going to tell you about that you haven't heard of ever, and you're going to think, is she making this up? I must have heard about this. You haven't. And if you have, hi, how are you? Nice to meet you, fellow lawyer, law student, or a copyright person. If you're into copyright, maybe you know. This is called the porno trolling law firm. The porno trolling law firm. They are called Prenda Law, okay? A Chicago-based firm that was running its porno trolling con from 2010 to 2013. And it is believed to have netted the law firm more than $6 million. That's right, a law firm, lawyers, practicing, passed bars, and also lowered it, right? Okay. What did they do, you ask? Well, in their legitimate days, which were never, but when people thought they were legit, what they did is they would represent these companies, right? Porn producers, if you will, who make, you guessed it, porn. And they would, right? Obviously, these companies would have the rights, the copyrights to those porn videos, right? Artistry, art, if you will. They would have these rights to those videos, but they would just be upset. Of course they would be. Because they would find, right, when they monitored these BitTorrent sites, okay, essentially these sites that would operate into mass individual to individual file sharing, okay, like BitTorrent. You can torrent porn, you could stream porn, okay? They were finding that their porn, their copyright, their rights were being infringed upon because people, okay, IP addresses would be downloading their copyright, okay, their porn videos off of these BitTorrents, okay, downloading, getting it, all of that, and which is you can't do that, right? You can't do such a thing, okay, without like paying the rights to it, okay, the rights to that copyright, et cetera, okay. It's the same thing as, not the same thing, but it's just an easy parallel of like Bella Hadid, for example. There was a lawsuit against her because there was a paparazzi, a pap, who shot her photo like leaving her apartment, okay, in like a cute outfit. And it was like it was basically, he sold it to like, whoever, like, uploaded somewhere, okay, sold it whoever to like a magazine. And she had like screenshotted that photo because she thought of herself and was like, I look so good, and just posted it on her Insta story with like a heart. That photographer sued her because he said, I have the rights to that photo. You can't use that photo without paying me, which most people would think that's obscene, but like, that's how it works. Like, that's genuinely just how it works. Okay. And obviously the Bella Hadids of the world are going to be targeted more so than the fucking Reb Mazes of the world. Okay. Or the like Joe Schmo, Johnny Jamokes, hi, love you so much, of the world. Okay. But the reason why this case gets so fantastic and so just ripe for a movie, big Hollywood blockbuster type, like Matt Damon is the lead fucking thing, okay, is because God, are there so many layers, and God, is it fucking hilarious, okay? The way this shit went down and the way, I'm not even gonna say anything. Okay, I'm not gonna spoil it. To an outsider, documents filed in copyright infringement suits brought by Prenda Law and its associated firms may read like a legal thriller. Over the past few years, these lawsuits, as well as the affidavits, motions, and orders filed in state and federal courthouses spanning from California to Florida, have culminated into what one defense attorney described as an epic saga. These cases, however, are far from fiction. For the thousands of people who have faced the threat of litigation, those who have been sued, and the attorneys representing them, quote, "You could really write a book on it," said Laura Beasley, a Belleville, Illinois attorney. "It's unbelievable." Beasley has handled cases for dozens of, quote, John Does accused of illegally downloading pornography by various companies represented by Chicago-based Prenda Law and firms with ties to it like Steele Hansmeier, Alpha Law Group, and Anti-Piracy Law Group. While many of these suits are against named defendants, many of them list potential John Doe defendants because the plaintiff companies only know the IP addresses allegedly associated with the downloads as opposed to their actual identities. Like many of the defense attorneys involved in these porno trolling cases, Beasley said she didn't know much about Prenda Law's practice behind its nationwide litigation, but has quickly come to the conclusion that she has, quote, never seen anything like it before. Massachusetts attorney Jason Sweet said the business model believed to have put millions of dollars into the pockets of the attorneys representing the plaintiffs is, quote, so convoluted, and describes the evolving saga as, quote, just epic. To have your name as an attorney involved in this case be Jason Sweet, I think is just like one of so many sprinkles on top of this fucking sundae, okay? The amount of porn star fucking names involved in this saga, this clusterfuck, in this porno trolling collective is so the sprinkle on sprinkle on sprinkle on top of this sundae of porn, okay? None of these people are porn stars. Well, one of them might be. We'll get into it. But like, just please take note of the names. You couldn't make this shit up. Like, that's why I feel like maybe Hollywood hasn't touched this shit yet. It's either that they don't fucking have lawyers like me on deck, and if they do or want them, hit me the fuck up. But two, I think it's because they think everyone's going to think this is a little too on the nose. Like, everyone's going to be like, based on a true story, okay, and they changed everyone's names. No, they kept them the fucking same. Jason Sweet, attorney from Massachusetts, says this shit is epic. Like, he's like, it's just fucking crazy. Like that, we're lawyers who are like me, okay, that you think I'm so different. Like, I'm just so different. We're not. We're all the fucking same. If I was ever in a fucking interview talking about a case I was on and the only word I could come up with was shit was fucking epic as hell, know that is my last straw. Like, know that I am beyond professionalism. I'm like, there's no other professional way to describe this. This shit is whack as hell. Liddy, fucking crazy. Sweet, Jason Sweet, Sweet said he first got involved in defending these types of suits in 2010 before the Chicago firm of Steele Hansmeier dissolved and became Prenda Law's predecessor in interest, okay? So essentially, it started being Steele Hansmeier, which are the last names of two of these attorneys who are involved, the main ones, okay? The first one, the main guy's name, guess what it is? John Steele. You're kidding. Nope, I'm not. Okay. And the other one is like Paul Hansmeier, which is like way more corporate attorney, but like John Steele is enough. You know what I mean? Like, enough. So they had a firm called Steele Hansmeier. Okay. And then they were like, let's make like a new fucking firm called Prenda Law and like keep doing this porno shit. And they were like, word. As the years have passed, Sweet, who represents John Doe's and named defendants, said details have surfaced, spurring sanction orders against the Prenda Law attorneys for conduct described by a few federal judges as, quote, brazen misconduct and relentless fraud. While strongly phrased judicial findings, several sanctions orders and referrals to state and federal agencies would make a, quote, sane person stop, Jason Sweet said attorneys with ties to Prenda Law don't seem to be fazed as they continue to push their porno trolling suits and appeal rulings. Quote, I don't know why they keep going, Sweet says, but I'm not surprised by anything they do anymore. You guys, please, some mouse after the writer's strike, fucking hit me up. Hit me down, hit me up. The story behind these lawsuits apparently started in 2010 when the plaintiff companies, okay, these porno producer companies, began accusing IP address owners of hacking into their computer systems and illegally downloading porn. Okay. And for those of you who literally have no grasp or concept of like, oh, okay, IP addresses, anything like that, just know that you have one, like your computer has one, right? Like anyone, your IP address is the thing that traces you to your home fucking address. Okay. Do with that what you will, your computer. Okay. Wherever your computer is. Okay. I know it's more complicated than that, but there's really no need to get into it for purposes of this. Okay. And trust me when I tell you, these lawyers did, look, I can't, I don't want to give shit away, but like, it's so hard to not give shit away. Like if anyone, I swear on my fucking life, if I was at any type of like bad first date and I just wanted to like immediately just talk the entire fucking time. Okay. Because I was like, oh, you're so boring. I would just talk about this case and go a mile a minute and just wait for the check, right? And order as many drinks as possible. Around 2010, Prenda Law began serving subpoenas on internet service providers in an attempt to obtain information about the IP addresses they alleged were engaged in porn copyright piracy. In a 2012 Forbes article, that's right, John Steele, our porn star name, John fucking Steele. Spoiler alert, he's a middle-aged white guy. Actually, like early 30s white guy. Okay, imagine Jordan Belfort. Like imagine Leo DiCaprio, okay? That, like looking like that motherfucker. He looks like, I'm gonna be real, as sad as it is to say, he looks like Harvey from Suits. And I swear on my fucking life, like if you Google this motherfucker, you'll be like, wait, this is literally a bad movie, okay? Porn star, but not a porn star, porn copyright troll attorney, porn star, John Steele of Prenda Law Firm was featured in a 2012 Forbes article where Steele said he's, quote, considered the original copyright troll, a somewhat derogatory term that refers to parties who enforce copyrights to make money. The article in Forbes notes that John Steele, quote, claims to have come up with the idea of pursuing people for illegal downloads while in law school at the University of Minnesota with his buddy, Paul Hansmeier. Yes, also white. Yes, also looks like a douche. Quote, when we were in law school, we could look at the router and see people ripping movies and songs. We thought, wouldn't it be amazing if we could find a way to identify these people and go after them? Oh, you martyrs. Steele said, quote, adult entertainment companies were the only ones that would work with us. Nothing to be proud of, son. Characterizing the illegal downloading of copyrighted porn as a, quote, huge problem, pun intended, Steele said in the article that, quote, I think we've made a difference. Otherwise, we wouldn't have made so many people mad. Sometimes I feel as though, right, there's definitely some professions, some fields, some areas of law where you inherently make people mad, right? And that's probably when you're doing your job, your trabajo. Okay, public defenders make a lot of people mad simply for existing and holding the line when it comes to people's constitutional rights and ensuring that the guiltiest person and the most innocent person gets the most excellent caliber of representation that could possibly be available to them, because if they don't, then no one will. No one will. Right? Then everyone's guilty. Then everyone's fucked. Okay? And that no matter what, even the most guilty person in the entire world should only be put away or sentenced if the prosecution is required to step the fuck up. Right? Because if public defense sleeps on the job, then prosecutors will sleep on the job. They don't give a fuck. Right? Public defenders are the checks and balances to our system, no matter how guilty that person is. It doesn't mean that they think they should get off. It just means that they think that, goddamn, the prosecution had better have a fucking case, because no one should be going to prison if it's not beyond a reasonable doubt in the right way. Okay? Thank you. They do inherently piss a lot of people off, right? For doing that. Of course they do. I don't know that in this case, pissing a lot of people off because you're serving a bunch of subpoenas to people who are allegedly downloading porn. is really the martyrdom that you think it is. Johnny Steele, right? Jay Steele. Okay, it's giving Jay Rust for sure. And I'll tell you why. The practice has definitely angered some people, especially by this time in 2013 when this article was written, including an online community that has created a handful of websites and blogs dedicated to sharing the latest information on these cases. Anti-copyright trolls are like such a big community online because like it's basically like, I want to say the good side of Reddit, but I don't know if that's really a thing. I don't think that's possible, but it very much gives the same vibe as like regular people who are just pissed off about a very niche thing that isn't necessarily like a human rights violation, but just like a really big, annoying fucking thing that they think is just fucked up. Okay. And then they just go haywire and do all of this research and know so much about it and become experts on it that they bring these motherfuckers down, right? They bring these motherfuckers down like single-handedly. The main thing that Prenda Law would do to make all of its millions of dollars in money, okay, would be to send all of these John Does, okay, all of these unidentified IP addresses, okay, whatever their like home fucking address was, whatever the fuck, okay, they would send, basically subpoena the internet service provider, like Comcast, fucking Spectrum, whatever, and say, hi, we want the basic subscriber information for these John Does, for all these fucking, IP addresses. Okay? So the internet service provider would give that to them, basic subscriber information, meaning the name, the address, right? Phone number, if that. Like, that's it. And then they would send these John Does, okay, these people, letters in the mail, Prenda Law, letterhead, and say, hi, you have been found, your IP address at this address has been found to have illegally downloaded porn that we own. That's our copyright. We are going to sue you and we're going to put your name on a pleading. Okay. And even if you didn't do any of this, yeah, well, you're going to have to litigate this. And the really raunchy name of these porno videos are going to be connected to your name forever in litigation. But if you just pay us $4,000 now, we won't sue. We'll drop the case. Do you see? Defense attorneys have described this aspect of Prenda Law's practice, sending John Doe's letters that accuse them of illegally downloading specific porn movies and inform them they can either settle the matter or be sued, as extortion. The attorneys contend these letters offer their clients the, quote, opportunity to settle the matter for a few $1,000s or face the shame of being identified in a lawsuit over porn and the possibility of having to pay even more if they go to trial. In a well-known affidavit filed in a Minnesota case brought by Guava LLC, one defense attorney explained that he received one of these letters from Prenda Law in 2012. Prenda's letter explained that experts for its client used, quote, sophisticated computer software to capture illegal downloading activities, and that these, quote, experts preserved a piece of the file that the user of your IP address distributed to other infringers. This is what they're saying to people, just regular people, okay? Merkel asserted that when he called the number on the letter to explain he couldn't afford to pay the $3,400 settlement, he was offered a different deal. Quote, I would agree to be sued, Merkel wrote in his affidavit, adding that Prenda Law would then ask for, and I would provide, a copy of the BitTorrent log from my computer. The excuse for gathering this log is that it would corroborate the IP address evidence that they had already gathered through the use of Prenda Law's software. Merkel claimed it was only after subpoenas were served in the case against him that he learned of Prenda Law's practice of finding one John Doe to be a named defendant, aka in this case, Merkel, and then discovering the names of and requesting settlement money from other John Does by issuing subpoenas to ISPs. So like every single fucking IP address that they found that was, allegedly on this BitTorrent, whatever the fuck, from his computer, yeah, they would serve letters to. So it was really just like a grapevine of fuck, okay? In the Forbes article, Steele, our boy Steele, was cited as saying, quote, critics say we never actually file suit against people, just get their information, then pressure them to settle. But we're prepared to fight if you don't want to settle. Oh, perfect. I know that like some of this, right? You're thinking, okay, well, isn't like technically fine? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, if these people are really like downloading porn off the internet and like violating, infringing on people's copyrights, and like, what really is the problem? You know what I mean? Like, these production companies obviously have a right to this copyrighted, like, you know, porn videos. Like, maybe these people are a bunch of like creepers who are not creepers, but like people who watch porn on the internet. I don't know. And they're fucking torrenting a bunch of porn that they don't own. You know, you would think that maybe it would end there and this is just like a seedy biz and like it's actually fine. It gets better. It gets better. Because that's not what it was at all. As these lawsuits at the time in 2013, okay, which like we are going to get up all the way to today in this case, okay, of the shit that's gone on. As these lawsuits have worked their way through the system over the past few years, the plot has only thickened and become more complex. Not only do some defense attorneys claim that attorneys with Prenda Law ties created sham companies in order to bring these lawsuits, so AKA like sham porn production companies, they're naming like Cum Jizzler Incorporated, 69 LLC. They've also alleged, these defense attorneys have also alleged that Prenda Law has planted the porn online to induce infringement. That's right. Prenda Law was accused around this time of producing porn, having the copyright to that porn, some of their attorneys starring in that porn, planting it online to encourage infringement, okay? And then sending out the letters and saying, pay us or be connected to this forever. Listen, look, listen, look, and listen. It just writes itself. Do you know what I mean? Like, it gets better. I know you're like, oh, it must end there. It gets better. It gets fucking better because the court starts figuring this out, okay? I'm not saying that is all because like the feds. Oh no, we got court orders. That's right. Bench slap court opinions. Federal judges being like, wait a minute, hold the phone, hold my beer. And these fucking orders and hearings, I know what was said in them. And it's so fucking good. These buffoons, these fucking assholes, these jackasses, the literal Wolf of Wall Street fucking white boys are in court getting their asses handed to them. And they're trying to game the system. And the court is like, that's fucking hilarious. Like, oh my God, you guys, this is only the beginning. I'm so excited. Florida attorney Graham Seifert, another porn name, Lo Siento, I'm sorry, love ya, but like, goddamn, Graham Seifert, like in a cipher. Are you fucking kidding? Okay. I can't. I promise you this is a real thing. I'm not just making this up. I couldn't make it up. Like, I could not have made this up. Like, I can't write this well. The writer's strike, bitch, reality. Graham Seifert said every time he thinks the Prenda saga is nearing an end, quote, another juicy story comes out. Any rock you flip over, there is something underneath it, said Seifert, who represents the defendant in the Sunlust case, which he declined to discuss, but me and you are going to discuss it. Don't worry. He also represents the defendant in another Florida case in which he submitted a declaration from expert witness Delvin Neville. I'm not even, you guys, who said Steele is linked to an account that uploaded porn content to a download site. Given that he hasn't seen any new cases filed in some time and the skepticism raised by several judges, Seifert said he considers the business model used by Steele, Hansmeier, and Prenda Law to be dead. Seifert was wrong. He said, oh, it must be over, right? They're getting fucked. They must be trying to back out. You would think. But it only got more audacious. It got better. And if you're wondering where it ends, just stay with me. Okay, stay with me because it's satisfying. I promise you it's satisfying. Thankfully for you, me, and the lemon tree, okay, there were attorneys at this time who said, wait a minute, I'm going to be the hero, right? I'm going to be the porn trolling collective hero, which as much as I would love to put that on my resume, I'm not really sure how that would go down. But if, look, if it rains, it pours, like If it quacks like a duck, if it looks like a duck, it's a duck. I'd be like, look, I'd own it. I'd be like, I brought down the porno guys. And they'd be like, oh my God, that's great. Can I have your autograph? I'd be like, sure. My name is Ginger Stone. Something fucking slutty like that. Okay. Focus. This was in 2013. Okay. An article in 2013 when things were developing, right? We were sniffing out the audaciousness. We were sniffing out the absurdity. One thing to note as well that is a big part of why these, Prenda Law Pringles got absolutely cracked and crackled, snap, crackle, popped, is that the letter sending to these addresses and these people wasn't the first thing they did, okay? In order to even get the basic subscriber information for these IP addresses that they were allegedly, right, finding from these BitTorrent sites that had downloaded their copyrighted videos, they would file a lawsuit in federal and state court, okay, nationally. They were going everywhere, okay? They had their hands in everything. They were like glitter of the law, the herpes of arts and crafts. You know what I mean? Like literally getting everywhere, sneaking into every courtroom, thinking that this gave them an edge. And once you file a lawsuit, especially if you file a lawsuit against John Doe's, okay, against like IP addresses that you aren't sure of yet, you will then ask the court, hi, can I please have expedited discovery to serve subpoenas on these internet service providers, these ISPs, to be able to get the basic subscriber information for these IP addresses so I can actually serve the people that I'm trying to sue. And the court will typically say yes, right? Like you can file a lawsuit even if you aren't Hundy sure who you're suing yet. If you know at least enough that like like that there's a ghost of a person behind a wall and you know kind of where the wall is. The court will let you engage in enough discovery to be able to peek behind the wall and at least have the identity of that person. Or else, if you can't, right? Like if you somehow fail in doing that, then the case will be dismissed for lack of prosecution, right? Like, look, you're shot of luck. You're going to have to identify somebody. You can't sue an apparition. Though people have tried. Sue these IP addresses, get the basic subscriber information, which would include the name and address, and then send these letters out, okay? And say, hey, so we're about to amend our pleading to put your name on the top of this piece of paper in bold, underlined, and serve you with process, unless you settle and pay us $4,000. Okay? Mind you, yes, cases inherently, right, often do this kind of. The number is like 98% of cases like end up settling. Maybe it's like 88% for civil court. Let's say, okay, it's high 80s, low 90s. Let's say that, okay? That's the amount of cases that end up settling out of court that are filed, okay? And the positive of that, all right, most people think like, oh, that just means that like, people are just admitting that they're guilty. Well, no, the court pushes and their court system absolutely pushes you hard for settlement because settlement means that it's not a waste of court resources. It limits the amount of money that these people on both sides of the fence, plaintiff and defendant, have to spend, right? And legal fees and court fees, et cetera. It limits the amount of jury trials we have to have, pulling all these people into court and saying, hey, they can't fucking work it out, right? They can't the girls are fighting and we can't get them to stop. So there are typically several settlement, discussions, engagements, mediations, et cetera, that you partake in and are often required to partake in before you can even get to the trial. Okay. You can't just file a lawsuit and be like, let's move. Like, no, there's a whole process. Yeah. So oftentimes, right, of course, one of the angles is, hey, if you give us this much, we think we're entitled to this much money, a lot of fucking money, right? But if you give us this much, we'll settle. That's right. If you have legitimate claims, you can say that. That is not extortion. That's settlement, right? That's biz. That's showbiz, baby. If they had legitimate claims, like if that shit was legit, right? Then maybe it's a different story. But we're gonna get into it. We're gonna get into easy, okay? The reason why it's so well documented, like line by line, court hearing by court hearing, is because remember those Reddit people, right? The Reddit enthusiasts who I said were getting miffed about these copyright trolls like Prenda Law. Yeah, when they give a shit, boy, do they give a shit. The amount of blogs that were posted about this saga that like only people who were lawyers or people in the copyright community were reading is literally bonkers. And they are so detailed. These people would fly out to go to the hearings because in federal court, you can't have cameras in the courtroom, period. You're probably thinking, well, I've seen trials in like on camera. Yeah, that was state court, 100%. If you ever see a trial on camera, it was state court. Never in a federal courtroom. You cannot have cameras. So yeah, they were flying the fuck out to listen in and literally write down everything that was said and then report on it and laugh. This post is again from 2013. This was the beginning of the end, I like to say, for Prenda Law Firm, okay? And it has to do with a September 2012 complaint that Prenda Law filed on behalf of a company called Ingenuity 13 LLC against a John Doe, okay? Classic IP address, you get the picture. This complaint said that John Doe illegally downloaded an adult video called A Peek Behind the Scenes at the Show. In the complaint, Ingenuity 13 LLC, a limited liability company organized in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, which is an island country in the West Indies, said that John Doe illegally downloaded an adult video called A Peek Behind the Scenes at the Show, the rights to which Ingenuity owns. Ingenuity was represented by Brett L. Gibbs, who was admitted to the California State Bar in 2007, and who billed himself as of counsel to Prenda Law. Ingenuity 13 LLC begins to issue subpoenas seeking to reveal the identity of John Doe. John Doe resisted, seeking a stay of the subpoenas. So the person with the IP address, okay, was like, fuck that shit. Moreover, John Doe, through his attorney Morgan Pitts, filed a notice of a related case. A notice of a related case is basically a mundane document that lets the court know that a particular case is related to another one. So if they involve the same parties, the same legal disputes, factual disputes, etc., the court, right, might consolidate those cases, or even, you know what I mean, like look at the other one and be like, okay, let's see how these tie together. Sometimes there are strategic reasons for filing a related case notice. If you like the judge that the oldest case is before, sometimes there are strategic reasons for filing a related case notice. If you like the judge, for example, from the older case before, okay, maybe if it's like gone now, but such notices are not ordinarily greatly controversial, okay? Like typically it's like a no-brainer, like, yeah, notice a related case, like this case is fucking related. But of course, because it's fucking Prenda Law and we're in buffoonery, this notice Pitts filed was anything but ordinary. In it, he laid out his theory in detail that Prenda Law and attorneys affiliated with it were engaged in fraud on the court in multiple cases. Pitts asserted, and bear in mind, these were only assertions at the time, okay? Not yet fully adjudicated by the court, for sure. He asserted that 1, Prenda Law or its attorneys might themselves have undisclosed ownership interests in the entities like Ingenuity 13 LLC they purport to quote unquote represent. 2, Prenda Law and its principal, John Steele, may have stolen the identity of a property caretaker named Alan Cooper to use as a figurehead officer of plaintiff entities of these adult entertainment production companies. An allegation that was first raised by Alan Cooper himself, the poor caretaker who was served with something and thought, what the fuck is this? Why is my name all over this? Okay? Yeah. Maybe if you're gonna, you know what I mean? Like identity theft, you should pick someone who isn't like literally your fucking gardener. Someone a little more attenuated from your bullshit. I don't know. Maybe it's just a thought, like not legal advice, right? Not legal advice. An allegation first raised by Alan Cooper itself, which led to the defamation suit against him and his lawyer. I will get into the Alan Cooper case, completely separate can of worms, okay? The identity theft defamation situation in a moment. Don't you worry, okay? Doesn't it sound like a DB Cooper fucking conspiracy? Yeah. Yeah. If you don't know who DB Cooper is, I don't know what else. I don't know what to tell you. And 3, the third allegation. The attorneys associated with Prenda Law have made inconsistent representations to courts about their connection to Prenda Law and its cases. In addition, Pitts argued that the Prenda Law cases pending here in Los Angeles presented related issues of law, like the question of whether courts should even allow Prenda Law to subpoena internet service providers to determine the identities of defendants identified only by IP addresses. Of course, right, as men who are caught, who are told, okay, that the game is up, the jig is up. They are told things that they don't enjoy hearing about themselves. They reacted with fury. Prenda Law lost its fucking shit. Okay, our boy Johnny Steele, John Rust, he was not about it. On December 17th, 2012, Brett Gibbs, who I mentioned was the of counsel, quote unquote, okay, for Prenda Law. Okay, he's just an attorney with them, all right, filed a motion for sanctions against defense attorney Pitts, arguing that he was grandstanding in multiple district courts to gain clients, promote his blog, fight copyright trolls, and improperly advance a cross-case agenda, and that other courts had rejected his efforts. Prenda Law scheduled the motion to be heard in January, but Judge Wright, to whom the case had been assigned on December 20th, 2012, denied it summarily on December 12th, 2012. Just letting you know, it is a bad sign when a judge denies your motion summarily before the other side can even oppose it, right? Like, typically the way the motion process works is like you file a motion and then there are usually, right, like 21 days or 14 days for them to file a reply, and then like another like 7 days, 5 days for them to file, or an opposition and then file a reply. Like, do you see what I'm saying? Like, there's a process, and 99.999% of the time, like, unless someone refuses to oppose, there is a motion, an opposition, and a reply. Okay, there's a timeline. Judge Wright, who wrote many of the bench slaps here that I'm going to read to you, said, no, bitch, you thought. Okay, we have some rumblings. That this isn't going to go well. Okay, but does Prenda Law do anything different? No, they really don't. Okay, no, they really don't. Let's pause here. Okay, in the case of Ingenuity 13 LLC, which is pending in LA, okay, Central District of California, Prenda Law had also filed suit in Florida, all right, in addition to like everywhere, all these places. But this Florida suit, okay, ended up being dismissed by the judge, but not until what is described as a jaw-dropping hearing, okay? Buckle your seatbelts. This is while they were getting their asses handed to them, just a tad in the Ingenuity 13 case, all right? Amazing. So the short version is that the judge threw out the case, but that's not really the fun part. Here is the order throwing it out. Quote, the case is dismissed for failure to appear at this hearing, for failure to present a lawful agent, for attempted fraud on the court by offering up a person who has no authority to act on behalf of the corporation as its corporate representative, and the court will hear by motion a motion for sanctions and fees against this Sunlust entity and everyone affiliated with it, including a motion against Mr. Wasinger for his purposeful failure to appear at this hearing. Yes, this is the Sunlust case. Amazing. How did it reach that point? I'm reading from an article that was published, a blog post actually published December 3rd, 2012, okay? So it's going to give you the background that you need to understand the Sunlust, okay? The lusticles. If you've been following John Steele, now I am, you'll remember that he got blasted by judges in his home state of Illinois. Then he suddenly showed up in Florida, as did many copyright trolling cases. Fight Copyright Trolls, a blog, did a wonderful bit of investigatory journalism concerning Steele's move to Florida and connection to, quote, Prenda Law Firm. At issue, Steele is not licensed to practice law in Florida, but there were indications that he was doing exactly that. Steele insisted that he was retiring to Florida and not working. But after lawyer Graham Seifert, who has been defending many defendants in troll cases, alerted the Florida bar to Steele's activities, the bar got Steele to sign a cease and desist letter affidavit agreeing to, quote, not engage in any activities which constitute unlicensed practice of law. However, there appeared to be plenty of evidence that Steele was still copyright trolling as part of Prenda Law Firm. Okay, leap forward to yet another copyright trolling lawsuit supposedly brought by a company called Sunlust. A hearing was to be held on November 27th with federal judge Mary Scriven, and you have to read it to believe it. Officially, Sunlust's lawyer, Jonathan Torres, appears by phone with permission from the court. But the judge is perplexed, to say the least, because Torres, who has only just been brought on, has asked to withdraw from the case, as apparently a few other lawyers have as well. Also in the court is a Mark Lutz, appearing as the, quote, representative of Sunlust. The hearing begins with the judge scolding Lutz for not wearing a jacket and tie to court, and then starts digging into who exactly is the lawyer representing Sunlust. The court, quote, well, I'm a little confused. There was a lawyer who moved to withdraw, and there was another lawyer who moved to appear. Then he moved to withdraw, so who is on first, I guess? The judge asks Torres how he came to be associated with the case and is told that he was hired by the, quote, client, Prenda Law. Back to the transcript. The court, quote, the client and Prenda Law or Prenda Law? Torres, Prenda Law, Your Honor. The court, and what is their relation to you? Torres, just co-counsel arrangement, Your Honor. And what is this arrangement? For me to appear for any local hearings, Your Honor. The judge, well, I got a letter from someone from the Prenda Law Group saying they were not representing any party in this case and were not involved in the case and had no authority to speak on anyone's behalf in this case. So is Prenda Law principal counsel in the case or not? Torres, no, Your Honor. The court, so what is their relationship again then to you as counsel in this case? Torres, well, Your Honor, I was... The judge then puts Torres under oath and then quizzes him much more directly about Prenda Law and his relationship to Prenda, as well as everyone's relationship to the supposed client, Sunlust. Torres has only spoken to Prenda Law and believes that Prenda Law represents Sunlust. He notes that it's a contingency deal, but that he too is asking to withdraw from the case after being made aware of, quote, certain issues that were going on in the case, end quote, by the defense. The judge explores how much Torres knew about the case and whether or not the previous lawyer, a Mr. Wasinger, had spoken to him. He hadn't. Wasinger was the lawyer who had asked to be removed from the case already and wasn't in court, even though the judge had not granted him permission to leave the case, later leading him to file an apology saying he got mixed up. Finally, Torres admits that he had not looked closely at the case docket before asking to appear on Sunlust's behalf. Do you understand like what's going on here? Is that like Prenda Law filing this lawsuit, okay, this Sunlust entity, basically I'm telling you, okay, spoiler, Sunlust is bullshit, all right? They're like a shell fucking company, and it's basically like for the benefit of just Sean Steele and them, okay? So they're committing fraud on the court by saying that they have this client that they're representing for all these copyright trolling cases when like in reality, it's just literally them so they can just take all the money, okay? And also be the ones who are literally like pushing all these porn videos into the melee, like into the mainstream. Okay, like what in the fuck? So Prenda, okay, still wants their cash because they're fucking idiots. And so they are like, right, wanting to like be like, oh no, we're not representing Sunlust anymore. Another firm is representing them. Like some local Florida attorneys are representing Prenda now. But then the attorney who rolls up is like, well, Prenda's the one who hired me. See, like, that would be a bit of a conflict, right? Like, a law firm doesn't hire another law firm to take their place. Like, that's not how it works. Like, the client would be, right? You would be talking to Sunlust. Like, Sunlust is your client. Prenda Law isn't your client. Because if Prenda Law were your client, then that meant Prenda Law was Sunlust. Do you see how this jackassery tomfoolery, the court is like, hold up, can you go under oath really quick? And started quizzing them, okay? Amazing. The judge then returns to Torres, okay, to see if he can explain this mess, since Torres claims to have been hired only by Prenda Law, and Prenda Law claims that it has nothing to do with the case. There's an amusing back and forth in which the judge and Torres try to sort out who's who and what's what. And then the judge notices the improperly dressed Lutz doing something and turns her attention to him, leading to a surprise reveal. Judge, Mr. Lutz, who is the individual you just spoke to in the courtroom with you? Mr. Lutz, sorry? The court, who is that behind you? Steele, Your Honor, my name is John Steele. Judge, who are you? Steele, I'm an attorney. but not involved in this case. Judge, you're an attorney with what law firm? Steele, I'm not an attorney with any law firm right now, but I have worked with Mr. Duffy in the past, and I'm certainly familiar with this litigation just because I've been involved in many different cases like this in the past. Judge, but not this case. Steele, correct. You just love, like, you guys, like, lying to a judge, to a federal judge, and woo. Like, Steele's literally just in the courtroom, like, he's literally whispering to Lutz, like, that was what was happening. He was like, and the judge was like, sorry, who the fuck are you? Who the fuck are you? And he was like, nobody, I'm just nobody. But I'm John Steele. Like, you couldn't even, if you're gonna lie that fucking hard, at least, like, right, tidy up the lie with a fake fucking name, okay? Less of a porn star name. Like Mike McGee, I don't know. There's another brief exchange with the judge and Torres and then back to Lutz. Lutz is asked about Prenda Law as well and more or less tries to claim he doesn't know that much about them. At this point, Seifert, the defense lawyer, jumps in to point out that Lutz was, at one point, employed by Prenda Law Firm and worked for John Steele. You can almost sense the judge rolling her eyes as she immediately has Lutz sworn in as well. Then there's this lovely exchange. Judge, Mr. Lutz, you're under oath. You have to give truthful answers or you face penalties of perjury. Do you understand that? Lutz, yes. Judge, what is your position with Sunlust? Lutz, I'm a representative of them. What does that mean? Corporate representative. What does that mean? They asked me to appear on various matters throughout the country. Are you an officer of the company? I'm not, no. Are you authorized to bind the company to any legal contracts? I am not. Are you salaried? No, 1099. Judge, so you are a 1099 contracted entity and you just go around and sit in a court and represent yourself to be the corporate representative of the company? Yes. Mr. Torres, did you know this was Mr. Lutz's position, a paid corporate representative? Torres, no, Your Honor, I did not. Court, who is the president of Sunlust? Lutz, I'm unaware. Who is the vice president? I am unaware. Who is the secretary? I have no idea. Who owns Sunlust? I do not know. Who signed your checks? I believe somebody in the accounting department. What is their name? To be honest with you, I can't read the signature. Where is the accounting department located? Lutz, I'm sorry. Judge, where is the accounting department located? Lutz, I've received checks from California. Court, how much are you paid monthly to be the corporate representative? Lutz, again, it depends on my appearances, but the number of appearances that I do. The court, how much were you paid last month? Lutz, approximately $1,000. She then asks about what else he does or if he does this for others as well. The answer is yes. And starts asking some more questions about Prenda Law and then asks both Lutz and Torres about what other copyright holding companies they're working with. And then goes back to John Steele. The court, Mr. Steele, who is the principal of Sunlust? Steele, I'm sorry, you're asking me, ma'am? Yes, sir. I wouldn't know. Judge, you don't know who owns Sunlust? Steele, that is correct. You don't know who the president is. The only person that I know who that's involved with Sunlust is Sonny Leone. The court, Sonny Leone. Steele is one of the people involved with Sunlust. That's the only person I've ever. What is the name? Sonny Leone. Spell it. Sonny. Leone. Leon. Steele, I believe there's an E at the end of that. I'm not certain. Where is he located? Well, I believe it's a she. And I believe that the last time I heard she was in India filming a major motion picture with some studio down there. But I don't keep up with that. I don't represent Sunlust or anybody anymore, really. I'm no longer actively practicing law. The judge, you're not practicing law. Steele, correct. I do appear occasionally at hearings on an ad hoc basis, but I do not have any current clients. Judge, you still have a bar license in the state of Florida? Steele, no, I'm licensed only in the state of Illinois. I want to make it very clear to this court, I am not purporting in any way to be an attorney licensed in the state of Florida. Judge, have you ever been licensed in the state of Florida? Steele, no. Judge. All right. End result? First, she tells Lutz to get the fuck out of there. The judge, quote, you can sit away from the table. You're not a corporate representative of anybody if you don't have any information about the corporation. You're not an officer or principal of the corporation. The court will exclude you as a proper corporate entity for this defendant. Like, basically, get the fuck away from everybody and everything. What the fuck are you doing? She then lets Torres off of the case, okay? The local attorney who was just like, I'm here for Prenda Law. And then Steele was like, no, you're fucking not. You're here for Sunlust. And he was like, what? And the judge was like, what's up? Yeah, she then lets Torres off the case, but also provides a word to the wise suggestion that he do a bit more research about who he agrees to represent before showing up in court on their behalf. Otherwise, he runs a strong risk of losing his license. She notes that she hopes it's a lesson about going forward with characters such as the ones that are presented here. Quote unquote. You just think about the characters in this fucking room because it's a clown show, right? And you currently have paint on your face. So wipe it off and leave. As noted in the beginning, she dismisses the case, suggesting there was an attempted fraud on the court and says that a motion will also be heard on Mr. Duffy for his lack of candor in relation to his connection with this matter. The transcript is obviously gorgeous and wonderful and amazing. I will link it below. That's what happened in Florida, okay? Flo Rizzy, okay? Now, after that hearing goes down, all right, we are now on act like fucking 7 at this point, okay? 2 blogs, okay, Ars Technica and Fight Copyright Trolls both have the odd story of a man named Alan Cooper, all right? Remember this caretaker of John Steele's who was apparently used as, the signing name and to be CEO and an officer, okay? For all of these shell porn companies. Yeah. Alan Cooper just happens to be employed by John Steele, but as a caretaker for some property Steele owns in Minnesota. And, well, his lawyer explains the rest of the details in a letter to the court. Quote, my client had for several years acted as a caretaker for a Minnesota property owned by an attorney by the name of John Steele. When visiting his property, Steele had on numerous occasions bragged to my client about a plan involving massive copyright legislation in multiple jurisdictions. He also specifically instructed my client to contact him if anyone ever asked him about various corporations, but that Cooper was to call him. When Cooper confronted Steele about that, Steele told him not to worry about that. Needless to say, my client was suspicious. Okay, suspicious, but did not know what to make of this situation. Upon learning about the many lawsuits filed by AF Holdings and learning that AF Holdings has a CEO with an identical name, he began to investigate further, eventually prompting him to retain counsel. AF Holdings, okay, is yet another porn company, all right, whose litigation got blown up, okay? Blown up specifically because Alan Cooper was, along with all of these other entities, listed as a CEO, right? Sign, name, the whole shebang, okay? And Alan Cooper, the actual real Alan Cooper, the caretaker was like, what? Found out, okay? And was like, what the fuck? In his letter, Alan Cooper's attorney continues, stating, quote, when investigating this matter and calling the number listed on the wefightpiracy.com website, I confirmed that Steele is currently, quote, of counsel with Prenda Law Firm. I called and emailed local counsel Michael Dugas to give notice of representation and find out if there was, in fact, a different Alan Cooper with AF Holdings. Don't hold your breath. Within an hour of giving notice to Prenda Law Firm and local counsel of my representation, Steele himself called my client several times in a row and asked if he had been talking to attorneys in Minnesota. Look, first rule of Attorney Fight Club, never infinity. When a client is represented by counsel, call that person directly, okay? The moment that a person, individual, anyone is represented by counsel, any attempts that you make to contact that person directly, likely sketch, right? Likely sketch-a-rooski. And exactly what this was here, okay? Essentially, our boy Steele, our boy John Rust, okay? John Steely Steele, found out, oh shit, my caretaker, Alex Cooper, is connecting the dots here and must have somehow found out that he is listed as the fucking CEO of all these bullshit companies, including at least at this point, only he had found out about AF Holdings, okay? And he's like, fuck. So he's trying to call his buddy up, okay? So, like, if you've seen Wolf of Wall Street, like, I know I keep saying it, but it's like insanity, the parallels here. Because in Wolf of Wall Street, right, Leo DiCaprio plays Jordan Belfort, the douche canoe, white boy who is absolutely committing securities fraud at the Yang, right? Like, all of the stuff with the penny stock, yada, yada, no one cares. And pretty much immediately when, like, the feds were getting hot on his trail, he like personally, like basically told his attorney, oh, I'm just going to talk to the feds myself. And his attorney was like, don't fucking do that. He was like, no, it'll be fine. And like had a meeting with the feds on his yacht and tried to bribe them. Like that type of audacious, egocentric shit is the shit that's happening right now, right? John Steele's like, yo, like trying to call his homie up and be like, yo, like, let me know if you're trying to get a lawyer in Minnesota. Like, let me know what's going on with that. Like, let's work something out, right? Not so much. And his lawyer continues, because I had not yet heard from attorneys Dugas or Steele, I looked for an alternative phone number for attorney Dugas and found a different number than the one that appears on the pleading. Calling that number, I heard a voicemail message which said Prenda Law Firm. Like, you guys, if you want to try to pretend like all of these people are not affiliated with Prenda Law, right? Which is like what they're trying to do here. If you're confused, guess what? This is going to be the recentering summary, okay? That court hearing that I read for you from was essentially the hearing in which John Steele and his ragtag band of shitty associates were trying very badly to disconnect themselves from that lawsuit that was filed by Sunlust, okay, their alleged client, because it was growing increasingly clear and obvious that Sunlust was just Prenda Law with a different hat on. And clearly, right, like they were defrauding the court saying that, oh, we represent this company that is completely not affiliated with us and that engages in porn production and they do all these things. They aren't that. They're literally just Prenda Law posting porn online, producing it themselves, right? Getting their rocks off on camera and then posting it to these BitTorrent sites. Like they're committing fraud. Like you can't fucking do that shit, okay? And so in that hearing, they're like, we're not Prenda Law. Like, look at all these random lawyers that are now representing quote unquote Sunlust. And then the random lawyers that they got to show up to this hearing were like, Prenda called us, not Sunlust. Do you see how fucking dumb they are? And so then here, okay, the case with VF Holdings, okay, mind you, AF Holdings, sorry, completely different case, okay, that's going on. They have a lot of moving pieces on this chessboard, okay, and all of them are getting destroyed. Another case with AF Holdings, quote unquote, okay, another fucking bullshit porn production company. Prenda Law, okay, being they, was trying to pass off that this other attorney, Michael Dugas, okay, was like an attorney with a different firm who was also representing AF Holdings, okay? So they're trying to like somehow bullshit that, oh no, we swear this is a legitimate client. Like, don't worry, there are other attorneys, not just us who are representing them. Yeah, well, Alan Cooper. Oh my God. I've been saying Alex this whole time. I so apologize. It's Alan. Alan Cooper, okay, his attorney calls up Dugas on the main number he put on the pleading for the court, and it's some random number, calls a different number he finds online using google.com, and it comes up with a voicemail of Prenda Law. If you are genuinely trying to convince the court / anybody else in the entire universe that the attorneys on this case are not affiliated with Prenda Law, you should try harder. A 6-year-old could have covered a trail better than this. Like, this is so, it's not even like rookie shit. It's not even like, you know what I mean? Like little league shit. It's giving like toddler levels of manipulation. Very obvious, very clear, and very easy to untangle. Like, can we be serious? Thank you. Back to the letter. Quote, I again left a message but have received no response. Because I have no response from Dugas or Steele, and because Steele has contacted my client, my suspicions are now increased. Okay, aka Alan Cooper's attorney's suspicions that maybe there is no second Alan Cooper, and maybe Steele used the caretaker's name to get an acting CEO on deck. Today, I received an email from another attorney at Prenda Law, Paul Duffy, suggesting that their client, AF Holdings, probably would not volunteer information. I wonder why. I reasserted my request to confirm that there was another Alan Cooper at AF Holdings. Shortly before sending this letter, Duffy emailed me again and said that I should not contact his office again. The audacity! My client would like certainty that his identity is not being used without his knowledge and against his will as the would-be CEO of AF Holdings LLC or as a manager of Ingenuity 13 LLC. Because you guessed it, the other company that Alan Cooper is listed as the CEO, officer, whatever of is also Ingenuity 13. This letter that Alan Cooper's attorney sent, okay, was sent to the court on a few different cases involving these companies, okay, AF Holdings and Ingenuity 13. All right. Basically outlining the fact that, hey, we don't think there's another fucking Alan Cooper. They haven't confirmed that we're right. It's not the Alan Cooper that they're that I'm representing. Because the Alan Cooper I'm representing did not fucking consent to any of this shit. Is not the CEO of any of these companies, and we just want to make sure that the court fucking knows that shit, so that we are not found liable for any of this tomfoolery. Okay. In at least one case, the judge apparently didn't think this mattered. Okay, because like as an attorney, right, what you come to learn very quickly is some judges fucking aren't good at their jobs, right? They're not good at their jobs. The same thing as, you know, a doctor, a solicitor, an accountant, a waitress. Some people, right, are not built the same, okay, as everyone in their field. It's just the way it is. Some doctors are bad doctors, and you have to accept that. Some lawyers are horrible, terrible, awful lawyers, and you have to accept that. Guess what judges are? Lawyers, yes. Some of them are bad at their jobs, or some of them just don't, you know, care enough or don't have the time to really flesh out some of these issues. They sometimes make mistakes. Hopefully enough judges don't fuck up, but sometimes that doesn't happen. But in this case, okay, in at least one of the cases involving Prenda Law and their sun-lusty companies, the judge didn't think it mattered, okay? After saying that it was, quote, reviewed by the court, the judge also said that the court will take no action on this request. But in the other cases, the lawyer for AF Holdings, Michael Dugas, wrote a response to Alan Cooper's attorney's letter, okay, that they submitted with the court, that does not attempt to clarify the situation literally at all. Quote, I write to respond to the November 29th, 2012 letter filed with the court by attorney Paul Gottfried. In his letter, attorney Gottfried accuses AF Holdings LLC of being a sham corporation and fraudulently holding his client out as its CEO. Both of these accusations are categorically false. Attorney Paul Gottfried filed an identical letter in a similar case currently pending before the Honorable Judge Joan N. Erickson. In a text entry, the court indicated it reviewed the letter and will take no action on Gottfried's request. Plaintiff respectfully requests that the court reach similar decision. By way of separate action, plaintiff will address attorney Gottfried's egregious behavior. Note that the letter leaves out the most important part. You know, the part where they say that the Alan Cooper on these documents is a different Alan Cooper. Right? Like, what is your evidence to support that this Alan Cooper that you're allegedly writing down is a different one? Because it seems to be the same fucking guy. And he says that this was fraudulent. It would seem that short, clear answer would help settle the matter, right? Yeah, they never really give those. Okay, they never really give those answers. Mind you, you guys, just to put the cherry on top of this frat boy bullshit that Prenda Law Firm is engaged in and also comprised of, okay? Michael Dugas, all right, and you heard this name as the lawyer representing AF Holdings, okay, in this one case with the Alan Cooper bullshit, all right? He listed himself on letterhead, okay, as not being affiliated with Prenda Law. On the letterhead for the letters that he's submitting to the court in response to Alan Cooper's attorney's letter saying, you are fraudulently using my client's identity, he lists his law firm as Alpha Law Firm LLC with an address in Minneapolis. Alpha Law Firm. Right? If you're immediately thinking Andrew Tate, like incel subreddits, alpha male bullshit, right? That absolutely just wraps it up with a bow, doesn't it? Like if you saw the photos of these men, they're the biggest douche canoes, have definitely been divorced several times, like definitely absolute douchebags, listen to Joe Rogan religiously like he's Jesus, like that type shit, okay? But they're not very good at this shtick. It sounds like a bit, doesn't it? All of this sounds like a fucking bit. Oh, really? You mean the other attorney, definitely affiliated with Prenda Law Firm, is trying to not be affiliated with Prenda Law Firm by saying he's at a law firm called Alpha Law Firm Law LLC? Come on, that's a little on the nose, don't you think, Reb? Absolutely. I don't know what to fucking tell you. Like, I am just reading from these fucking filings. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Obscene. Okay, obscene, absurd. Obscene, absurd, obscene, and absurd. So in reality, okay, Michael Dugas, I know it's confusing, but stay with me. Michael Dugas is an attorney listed on the pleadings in the AF Holdings case as representing AF Holdings, okay? He is claiming to not be part of Prenda Law. He's claiming that, oh, nope, I represent this completely separate company. I am not affiliated with Prenda Law. Alan Cooper's attorney calls his ass and it goes to voicemail. So he Googles his name and finds another number and calls it. And the voicemail is for Prenda Law. Okay? You fucking jackass. So it's very clear, all right, that Michael Dugas is literally just Prenda Law with a different hat on. And they are doing a very poor job of covering up the fact that there is no AF Holdings, that they are literally just a Prenda Law Firm porn trolling collective. And they actually, all these companies don't exist. Okay? Amazing, perfect, gorgeous, amazing porn. Okay. So let's take it back to good old California. Okay? Central District of California. The Ingenuity 13 LLC case, right? If you recall, this case is the one where essentially Ingenuity LLC, okay, Ingenuity 13 specifically, okay, represented by Prenda Pringles, they sued a John Doe, remember, who for basically allegedly downloading an adult video called A Peek Behind the Scenes of the Show. All right, you remember this? Amazing, perfect, gorgeous. Ingenuity was represented by Gibbs, okay, Brett Gibbs, who is of counsel to Prenda Law, all right? We know that, okay? So basically, it's they're not trying to hide the Prenda affiliation here. I think this was before the shit started hitting the fucking fan with the other Florida cases and stuff, and with the Alan, Cooper situation, okay? Right? So Ingenuity 13 starts to issue subpoenas, right, to find out the identity of John Doe. And the John Doe's attorney, all right, ends up making a bunch of allegations in a letter to the court being like, this shit's bogus and here's why. One of those, right, allegations was the whole thing of like, we think that all of these companies are bullshit, and that John Steele and Prenda Law stole the identity of Alan Cooper, okay, to basically be the CEO of all these entities. Remember that? And then Prenda Law responded with fury and they were like, what the fuck? Y'all are trash. Y'all are horrible. You suck, da-da-da, all this stuff, and filed a motion to essentially issue sanctions against John Doe's attorney, all right? And the court denied it before an opposition was ever filed, okay? You're recalling Amazing, Perfect, Gorgeous. What happens next, okay? What happens next? During this, okay, during the whole Alan Cooper shenanigans happening across the country, John Doe in the Ingenuity 13 case filed an ex parte application, okay, which means basically like a very quick, like emergency request. We need this heard in like 3 days situation, okay? Ex parte application for special discovery. Discovery in a federal civil case is strictly circumscribed by the federal rules of civil procedure. Among other things, you can't leap into serving interrogatories and taking depositions until the court has set a schedule and the parties have made certain mutual disclosures, okay, designed to like simplify things, all right? So usually it takes a couple months, okay, before discovery can really start. Here, our John Doe attorney, okay, in the Ingenuity 13 case, filed a motion on behalf of John Doe, sought leave to conduct limited immediate discovery into the true identity of Alan Cooper and his role in companies that Prenda Law used as plaintiffs in illegal downloading cases, right? So our boy, okay, his name is Pitts. His last name is Pitts. The Pitts attorney, wow. Last name Pitts, okay? Pitts, who's representing John Doe, he has been keeping his finger to the wind on all of these other cases happening across the country that I just told you about. I'm sure he downloaded the fucking transcript for that hearing where all those motherfuckers were like, I don't know who they are. I don't know who Sunlust is. I don't know who the CEO is. I don't know what's going on. John Steele was like, I've never heard of these people, right? He's in the hearing, like whispering to someone like a fucking third grader. Yeah. Our boy Pitts over in California was like, that looks fishy. Let's bring that ragtag clusterfuck over here. Okay? Because hopefully The judge in this case is gonna find it interesting. And fortunately he did, okay? He did, all right? So Pitts basically says, all right, I want to be able to serve discovery on all these bitches to try to figure out who the fuck Alan Cooper is, because if it's not a different Alan Cooper, then it's fraud and they can get fucked, right? Amazing. He also asked the court to extend the stay on Ingenuity 13 LLC's subpoena calculated to reveal John Doe's identity. Once again, Prenda Law responded furiously through Brett Gibbs, opposing the request, arguing that Pitts' documents did not prove any fraud in connection with Alan Cooper, accusing Pitts of a multi-district campaign of libel and sanctionable behavior, and pointing out that another court had not credited Pitts' claims and had not taken action based on them. See, but babes, like, here's my thing. Like, I've been a lawyer practicing for, right, only like 3 years, totally for sure. But what gooks me, okay, what gooks me as an attorney here is that this opposition opposing the request for limited discovery, okay, that Prenda Law basically like, right, filed. They were like, no, limited discovery and sanctions should be answered, or whatever. This is a libel, da da da. Nowhere does their opposition address the most obvious accusations that Pitts makes. Like these accusations that he's making in his motion, right? Oh, you're literally lying about this guy's identity. You literally are making up all these shell companies. You are full of shit, da da da, all this stuff, right? If you were actually not full of shit, it would basically be the easiest response in the world. You'd be like, no, we're not. This is the Alan Cooper. Here's his name. Here's his address. Here's his birthday. Here's his, like, attached is his fucking right info. Here's a photo of him. Number 2, these aren't shell companies. Look, they have a board of directors. Here's a list of the board of directors. They're different people. They're unaffiliated with us, da da da. Anytime, trust me when I tell you, look, anytime an attorney speaks, someone is grandstanding, yelling, libel, sanctions, da da da, screaming, right, that this shit is bogus and horrible conduct, da da da. That is where there's smoke, there's fire. Like, where there's smoke, there's fire. Come on, babe. It is very difficult to imagine an innocent scenario explaining why Prenda Law would not offer such a response if it could. And it didn't, right? It did not. Perhaps that's why on the day after Christmas, Judge Wright granted Pitts' ex parte application entirely, allowing him to take special discovery outside the normal federal rules of civil procedure into the identity of Alan Cooper. Christmas present, Christmas miracle, Christmas surprise, okay? This is the most that any judge at this point has gone into saying, actually, what? Say that again. Give me the mic. Let's ride. Let's go full balls to the wall and figure the fuck out what the fuck is going on here. Let's untangle this web of fuck, okay? Imagine Prenda Law scrambling. Oh, God, it's amazing. Okay, it's amazing. Meanwhile, Judge Wright was questioning, of his own accord, Ingenuity 13 LLC's efforts to discover the identity of John Doe, and with it, Prenda Law's entire litigation strategy. And in order to show cause issued on December 20th, 2012, Judge Wright ordered Ingenuity 13 LLC to show, in the multiple cases it had filed in Los Angeles, what steps it had already taken to identify defendants and its basis for accusing those particular defendants of copyright violations. Quote, the court is concerned with the potential for discovery abuse in cases like this. Ingenuity 13 accuses the Doe defendant of illegally coupling a pornographic video, but the only information Ingenuity 13 has is the IP address of the Doe defendant. An IP address alone may yield subscriber information, but that will only lead to the person paying for the internet service and not necessarily the actual infringer, who may be a family member, roommate, employee, customer, guest, or even a complete stranger. And given the subject matter of Ingenuity 13's accusations and the economics of defending such a lawsuit, it is highly likely that the subscriber would immediately pay a settlement demand, regardless of whether the subscriber is the actual infringer. Thank you. Period. What have we been saying, right? And all of these copyright troll blogs were literally jumping up and down, like, period. Like, we've been saying this for 3 years. Thank God. Judge Wright was like, I'm not a fucking jackass, okay? I know what y'all's fucking game plan is here, okay? So this is what Judge Wright said, quote, "This court has a duty to protect the innocent citizens of this district from this sort of legal porn shakedown, even though a copyright holder's rights may be infringed by a few deviants. And unlike law enforcement in child pornography or other internet crime cases, the court has no guarantee from a private party that subscriber information will not be abused or that it would be used for the benefit of the public. Thus, when viewed with the public interest in mind, the court is reluctant to allow any fishing expedition discovery when all a plaintiff has is an IP address. The burden is on the plaintiff to find other ways to more precisely identify the accused infringer without causing collateral damage." Thank you. Ingenuity 13 must demonstrate to the court how it would proceed to uncover the identity of the actual infringer once it has obtained subscriber information. Given that the actual infringer may be a person entirely unrelated to the subscriber, while also considering how to minimize harassment and embarrassment of innocent citizens. You're fucked, right? You are frick, frack, patty, whack, fucked. The big summary is that Judge Wright is questioning Prenda Law's entire litigation strategy across the entire US, all right? That identifying the IP address of an infringing download is a sufficient basis to force disclosure of the subscriber. Okay? That's the entire basis for sending out their letters, etc. Like that's all they got, right? That's their fucking game plan. That's their play. They don't have anything else in the playbook, right? This represents a challenge to the legal theory underlying Prenda Law's approach to these cases. It's also significant because it shows that Judge Wright believes what Prenda Law's critics have been saying, that it might be using the threat of identification to coerce settlements, and that this danger should be a factor in evaluating whether Prenda Law should be able to uncover the identity of these subscribers. We have a judge who knows what he's fucking doing. In response, okay, to this federal judge, all right, in Article 3, appointed by the president, confirmed by the Senate judge, okay, it's basically saying, hey, your shit is fucking whack. You need to show me why it's not whack. What does Prenda Law do in response? The thing that you would expect any douche canoe Pringles law firm to do. Prenda Law believes that the best defense is a good offense and responded to Judge Wright's orders by attempting to disqualify him upon allegations that he is biased against them and porn copyright holders. Prenda Law's motion was not well taken. You can't get rid of a federal judge because he rules against you. Spoiler, newsflash, shocker, plot twist. So this motion to disqualify, a different federal judge reviewed it, okay, and ruled on it, because like you're gonna not really so much that you're gonna have the judge who you're trying to disqualify like rule on the motion to disqualify, right? Makes sense. Yeah, and that other judge down the fucking hall was like, this shit's fucking stupid, and dismissed their motion, denied it, right, in its entirety. Was like, you can't fucking disqualify a judge just because they rule against you. Get fucked, okay? So now it's, but right, we're not only just back in Judge Wright's courtroom, it's like we never left. Like they never able to leave. Their best fucking response to the order to show cause, which is simply an order basically saying, hey, you should like set out your fucking evidence for like why like what you're doing is not predatory and why everything's like Gucci. They were like, oh no, we're not going to do that. We're just going to try to get you fired from this case. Yeah, that'll go over well, bitch. No, it won't. Essentially, things were now going badly for Prenda Law at a much faster pace, finally, okay? Like immediately. Faster, within weeks type pace, okay? Their motion to disqualify Judge Wright was denied on January 15th, 2013, okay? Just a few weeks after Judge Wright's order to show cause. So, of course, what does Prenda Law do? Okay? This is so fucking stupid. On January 28th, 2013, Prenda Law, still through Mr. Gibbs, okay, the one fucking the douche canoe that works for fucking Steele, all right, filed a voluntary dismissal of Ingenuity 13 LLC's case against this particular John Doe. Of course, right, as a plaintiff, when you file a lawsuit in federal court, you are allowed to dismiss a case voluntarily without prejudice, which means it maintains your right to bring it again. All right. Technically, you could do it pretty freely, right? Like judges typically don't inquire too much into the reason why you dismiss it. However, If shit like this starts going down, where the only reason why you're trying to dismiss it is because it's very clear that the entire thing was frivolous and or like you're committing fucking fraud on the court, yeah, the court will be like, good try, you're trying to leave. We locked the door, bitch. You can't go anymore. No, you can't. Generally, okay, a note when you file a notice of dismissal of your case, all right, in federal court, it's literally like a form. It's like a local form that you would find on like Central District of California's website that like basically is like check the boxes, fill in your case number and be like, I'm dismissed, I'm voluntary dismissing, okay? Yeah, Prenda Law didn't do that. They did not do like the little form situation thing, right? They basically made just a petulant swipe at Judge Wright because Wright, why not kick yourself while you're down? Why not fuck yourself over more and more and more by opening your fucking mouth, okay? In going down with the ship. Like, dude, like just fucking like you are fucked. You are frick, fatty, fucked. That's why it's so Wolf of Wall Street to me is because I'm like, no, the audacity to think that like you actually have grounds to talk shit about a judge who's calling you out for your exact bullshit is so insane. And to his face, like to his own clerks, I would have loved to be a clerk or an extern in his office during these cases. That would have been everything to me. Okay. This is what their notice of a dismissal said. Okay. This is what it said. Prenda Laws. Quote, the court before which the instant action presently sits has recently held that the court is not convinced that there is no way of identifying John Doe through an IP address other than obtaining ISP subscriber information. Plaintiff has presenting nothing but argument suggesting that it is so. Plaintiff maintains its contention that it is factually impossible to identify a John Doe through an IP address without obtaining ISP subscriber information. As such, plaintiff now dismisses his action without prejudice in order to avoid the futility of attempting to litigate these cases under such circumstances. End quote. So they're basically saying, fuck you, Judge Wright. The only reason why we have to dismiss these cases is because you won't let us get the subscriber information. Okay? Bad move, bad play, bad call. 2020 Vish, bad call. It was a bad call. Because here's the thing. As I said, even when a plaintiff dismisses a case, a federal judge does not lose jurisdiction and the power to inquire into the conduct of the attorneys and parties in the case. When a federal judge is angry at you, filing a dismissal is akin to dropping the red flag, backing away, and telling the charging bull, hey man, we cool, we cool. As we'll see, Judge Wright intended to exercise his power and fucking charge. On February 7th, 2013, things got much worse for Prenda Law. Judge Wright issued an order to show cause, another one, in this case, and in connection with multiple related cases brought by Prenda Law on behalf of Ingenuity 13 LLC and AF Holdings LLC. Judge Wright cited Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 11, which governs sanctions for misconduct, okay? And articulated his inherent power to investigate and punish misconduct in cases before him. Quote, the court has a duty to supervise the conduct of attorneys appearing before it. The power to punish contempt and to coerce compliance with issued orders is based on statutes and the court's inherent authority. And through this power, the court has wide latitude in fashioning appropriate sanctions to fit the conduct. It's important that Judge Wright says in this order that should have been the writing on the fucking law for the Pringle law firm, okay, that they were about to get absolutely yeeted into the solar system, okay? Sign of what's to come. The court's Judge Wright said, quote, upon review of papers filed by attorney Morgan E. Pitts, the court perceives that plaintiff may have defrauded the court. At the center of this issue is the identity of a person named Alan Cooper and the validity of the underlying copyright assignments. If it is true that Alan Cooper's identity was misappropriated and the underlying copyright assignments were improperly executed using his identity, then plaintiff faces quite a few problems. Failure by Prenda Law's Mr. Gibbs to appear will result in the automatic imposition of sanctions along with the immediate issuance of a bench warrant for contempt. You guys, imagine if my ass read that and it was like, oh, Miss Maisel to appear will result in automatic imposition of sanctions and contempt, I'd be like I'd be peeing my pants. Pardon me, okay? Pardon fucking me? Holy shit. You're fucked, okay? Okay, bear with me. My cat is pretending like he's never been given a morsel of food in his fucking life. So if you hear him, say hi, Simba. Co-producer, for sure. So Mr. Gibbs responds. But before he does that, he retains his own counsel to represent him individually as Mr. Gibbs from Prenda Law before responding to Judge Wright's order to show cause in writing. He says, oh my God, shut the fuck up. Gibbs says that he always intended to act honestly and forthrightly, and in his declaration explained how he became involved with Prenda Law. Let's go. He was first hired by Steele Hansmeier PLLC, S&H, okay? That would be the Steele of John Steele, correct, if you're wondering. Yep, that's Steele, John Steele, okay? Paul Hansmeier and John Steele are the two main hoes who were running this fucking operation, okay? And Mr. Gibbs says he began working for Prenda Law when it bought S&H's business. He describes working without direct contact with any of the principals of Prenda Law's clients and getting instructions from unspecified principals of S&H. So essentially from Paul and John, okay? For instance, with respect to Alan Cooper, Gibbs says, quote, I have never met Alan Cooper and do not know what the extent of Mr. Cooper's role is in AF Holdings aside from seeing a signature from an Alan Cooper on the copyright assignments and pleadings. Based on the assignment agreement, AF Holdings held the valid and exclusive rights to reproduce and distribute the porn film, Popular Demand. I was not present when the assignment agreement was executed. I also never had any direct contact with either Raymond Rogers or Alan Cooper. I have never executed a document as Alan Cooper. I did not play a role in or have knowledge of the assignment transaction at issue. Senior members of S&H, aka Steele and Hansmeier, provided the assignment agreement to me, hello Simba, and informed me that the copyright assignment was a true and correct copy of the copyright assignment and to include it as an exhibit in complaints filed on behalf of AF Holdings LLC. Before filing any such complaints, I confirmed that AF Holdings LLC was in fact listed as the valid copyright holder. But here's the thing. Okay, here's the thing. Here's the issue that I'm having with this, right? When a federal judge who was nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate, right, of the United States, asks you whether you committed fraud and mentions incarceration in writing, you need to do better than some guys told me, right? I heard it from the grapevine. Some other dudes let me know. They passed me a slip of paper and said, we pinky swear this is legit. Are you out of your... Gibbs is, quote, senior members of S&H, okay, that he claims gave him this info are obviously Steele and fucking Hansmeier, all right? But he doesn't actually name them in his fucking, response. Saying senior members of S&H told me without naming them is trouble. You are about to be fucking slapped. Like, what? Dude, the judge is not going to be happy. Not going to be happy. Woof. So essentially he's asking for fucking trouble, okay, with this response, with this fucking shady ass beat around the bush response. Mr. Gibbs, and if Mr. Gibbs was asking for that trouble on purpose, he absolutely got it. Judge Wright responded to this shitty response with a February 27th, 2013 order requiring him to show up in person at the March 11th, 2013 hearing and requiring him to make a supplemental filing explaining whomst the unnamed people in his declaration were and to specify the owners of Ingenuity 13 LLC and AF Holdings LLC and their contact information. This is clearly a sign that Judge Wright is following the pleadings very closely and is very determined to uncover the specifics behind Pitts' allegations. Remember, Pitts is the guy who is representing the defendant, okay? Who was like, I have some fucking theories. You want to hear them? And Judge Wright was like, tell me more. Okay. Mr. Gibbs responded with a supplemental declaration in which he said that he understands that attorney Paul Duffy is the principal of Prenda Law and that attorneys John Steele and Paul Hansmeier gave him his instructions as to what to do on behalf of Prenda Law. He also indicated that he understood that Mark Lutz is the CEO of AF Holdings LLC and Ingenuity 13 LLC. You might remember a lot of Mark or whatever, Mark. Yeah, a lot of Mark Lutz talk from that hearing I quoted from in Florida. Okay. So let me give you some context. Who the fuck is Mark Lutz, right? Let's refresh. Mr. Lutz is alleged to be a former employee of John Steele and Prenda Law. Mr. Lutz showed up in court in that disastrous Florida hearing where he was scolded for not wearing a jacket or tie, though he was, I am reliably informed, wearing shoes. At that hearing, ably described by an article from Tech Dirt, Mr. Lutz appeared as the, quote, corporate representative of a company called Sunlust, but could not answer any meaningful questions about the company or its leadership. This brings us to almost the finale, okay? I promise you, if you've been hanging in here this long, it is worth it, it is worth it, it is worth it. Because this is like the penultimate hearing before the fuck that I'm going to summarize, okay, that happened to these fools. All right. But this was the hearing that basically everyone, their mother and their dog arrived to and came for and sat in the fucking cheap seats for to watch, okay, in person, who had been following the Prenda Law saga, okay, for years at that point. Tech blogs, copyright blogs have been writing about these motherfuckers for years, okay, with no evidence or proof, right, to substantiate their claims that they think that this business model is bullshit. But now we have an attorney going, hey, I think this shit's bullshit. And the judge, right, one judge finally going, actually, yeah, let's look into it, okay? Judge Wright at this point has absolutely read the transcripts from every other hearing. Like, he is locked in, right? His seat is buckled. Like, he is ready to fucking do this. He is the equivalent right now, Judge Wright is, of a girl in college who was asked by her friend to try to find this guy, right, that she met one time last week at a bar, and she only knows his first name and the color of his hair. Like, she was like, you know what? I'm on a mission. She finds his social security card, mother's maiden name. Like, she knows everything about him, right? The same way that women are the FBI when it comes to social media, Judge Wright became the FBI when it came to Prenda fucking Law. All right? This brings us to Judge Wright's fateful March 5th, 2013 order. Judge Wright orders as follows. Quote, the following persons are hereby ordered to appear on March 11th, 2013 at 1:30 p.m. right here in this courthouse, downtown LA. Okay, bitch? Great. John Steele of Steele Hansmeier PLLC, Paul Hansmeier of Steele Hansmeier PLLC, Paul Duffy of Prenda Law, Angela Van Den Hemel of Prenda Law, Mark Lutz, CEO of AF Holdings LLC and Ingenuity 13 LLC, allegedly, Alan Cooper of AF Holdings LLC, Alan Cooper of Minnesota, right? The one who's like, that is not me. Amazing. And Peter Hansmeier of 6881 Forensics LLC. Are you catching on as to why this is going to be the hearing of all hearings? None of these motherfuckers have been in a single hearing altogether before. And also, at least one of these motherfuckers doesn't exist. This is amazing, right? This is beautiful. This hearing happened. Yes, it did. I'm just going to read from this article, okay, written by Ken White from popehat.com. I'm going to be linking the articles that I've been using, okay, for this amazing, extensive, detailed coverage. Like, they were doing the play-by-plays, bitch. They hated these motherfuckers. They were like, we want blood, okay? Quote, today, the Prenda Law enterprise encountered an extinction-level event. Faced with a federal judge's demand that they explain their litigation conduct, Prenda Law's attorney principals and one paralegal invoked their right to remain silent under the Fifth Amendment to the United States Constitution. As a matter of individual prudence, that may have been the right decision, but for the nationwide Prenda Law enterprise, under whatever name or guise or glamour they've been throwing that under, it spelled doom. The crowd gathered early outside of the courtroom of United States District Judge Otis D. Wright II. As before, the spectators included journalists, former Prenda defendants and their lawyers, law clerks and externs, interested citizens, and Electronic Frontier Foundation activists. The little crowd went awkward party foul silent when a team of lawyers and nervous-looking men in suits filed into the courtroom. Some of us glanced at the chart that attorney Morgan Pitts created to see if we could match faces. We soon saw that we could. Bets regarding who would show up in response to Judge Wright's order to show cause were won and lost with some good-natured cursing. A swarm of attorneys quickly checked in with the court clerk and took their places. On one side, attorneys Morgan Pitts and Nicholas Rinaldo looked calm. They had boxes of materials they wouldn't need and notes they wouldn't have to consult. On the other side of the room, 8 attorneys prepared to answer Judge Wright's questions, mostly for naught. In the gallery, Brett Gibbs, unhappy witness at the last hearing before Judge Wright, right? Remember our Prenda Law affiliated attorney? Sat looking sallow and grim. Paul Steele and Peter Hansmeier, the Hansmeier brothers, sat together looking ridiculously young and out of place. Like, you guys, they're literally babies. Like, they're literally like early 30s type beat. Like, literally like Wolf of Wall Street type young. Like, please, I'm gagged. Like, this is the funny shit. Because what's funny too is that I could name probably a good 5 to 10 people that I knew in law school who, if you had told me with no context that they had ended up in a situation like this with a porno trolling collective going awry, I'd be like, absolutely, I believe it. Like, you meet these characters a lot. You don't often see them being taken down like this. Thank God. As in, like, thank God I'm seeing it now. Paul Hansmeier's face was beefy red. Mind you, I'm reading from accounts that people had to take because there's no cameras allowed in the courtroom. So they're describing what they looked like. Imagine if you pull up to court, if I pulled up to court and someone was like, oh yeah, that attorney looked beefy red. I would literally launch myself off of a very high object. Paul Hansmeier's face was beefy red. John Steele looked conspicuously slick and immaculate in an impeccable, expensive suit, like a corporate executive in a bad RoboCop sequel. Paul Duffy, Mark Lutz, and Angela Van Den Hemel stared straight ahead. At a few minutes past the hour, the door to chambers slammed open and Judge Wright marched out and took the bench. Before he sat, he strode back and forth once behind his chair, surveying the gallery and running his tongue over his teeth. Then he sat and called the case. Attorneys announced their appearances. Brett Gibbs, Paul Hansmeier, John Steele, Paul Duffy, Angela Van Den Hemel, and Prenda Law all had counsel, but Peter Hansmeier and Mark Lutz did not. When Peter Hansmeier's attorney announced Mr. Hansmeier was present, Judge Wright asked where he was. Paul Hansmeier stood. Front row, ordered Judge Wright, stabbing a finger at the first row of benches behind Hansmeier's attorney. John Steele received the same treatment and sat next to Hansmeier. So they were trying to like get away with sitting in the public gallery. No, sir. You get the fuck up here. Ooh, this is like so scary and amazing. I'm obsessed. One of the attorneys pointed out that Peter Hansmeier and Mark Lutz were present but not represented. Welcome, sir, Judge Wright said to Peter Hansmeier, not entirely convincing. Is there an Alan Cooper? Any Alan Cooper present? Asked Judge Wright, referring to allegations that Prenda Law had stolen the identity of a Minnesota caretaker to serve as an officer of dummy clients. No such person was present. Judge Wright wasted no time. He announced that he was pleasantly surprised that the people he had summoned had arrived. It should be clear this court's focus has shifted dramatically from litigation of porno intellectual property rights to attorney misconduct. Such misconduct as that brings discredit to the profession, he began sternly. I have questions for those present, including Mr. Steele. Mr. Steele can choose to answer those questions or not. Steele's attorney rose and said that in light of the concerns that Judge Wright had raised at the March 11th hearing and serious allegations made by Judge Wright, Mr. Steele would be invoking his Fifth Amendment right to decline to answer questions. And this is from the point of view of the person writing this article who was in their hearing. Did they say, quote, I expected a murmur in the courtroom, but there was a silence like after a thunderclap. Quote, the word fraud was used, said Steele's lawyer. It should have been, shot back Judge Wright. Steele's lawyer gamely continued, saying that Steele was also precluded from answering by the attorney-client privilege. Quote, "You think there is a difference between these clients and Mr. Steele?" demanded Judge Wright, referring to allegations that the Prenda Law plaintiffs were mere dummy entities concealing attorney interests in those cases. Steele's lawyer said there was a real difference, but Judge Wright was clearly unconvinced. He made it clear, though, that Steele didn't have to answer questions. Quote, "He doesn't have to answer if he thinks it may incriminate him," says Judge Wright. "I'm not saying that the answers would incriminate him," protested Steele's lawyer, thus muddying the question of whether his client was ever actually entitled to take the fifth. Quote, "But you leave my client with no choice." Babes, like, maybe we should go back to like criminal procedure law school and like re-look at when you are permitted to take, right, the Fifth Amendment. The Fifth Amendment. Take the Fifth. Okay? Amazing. Judge Wright grew steadily and visibly more outraged. Quote, "I want to know if some of my conjecture is accurate. And the only way to know is to have the principals here and ask them questions. This is an opportunity for them to protect themselves," he said. But Steele's lawyer confirmed his client would exercise his right to remain silent. Attorneys for Paul Hansmeier, Paul Duffy, and Angela Van Den Hemel confirmed their clients, too, would invoke their rights to remain silent. Judge Wright did not, unless they missed it, confirm whether Peter Hansmeier or Mark Lutz would answer questions. At this point, Judge Wright is fucking mad. Like, he's so pissed, he's so mad. And all of these attorneys who are representing these clients, okay, like these like sham ass Prenda Law affiliated clients, those attorneys are like, right? Like, you're hired to do this. Like, you're hired to represent people who are fucked, like who might be frick, back, paddywhacked, in order to do your best to counsel them and advise them and get them, you know, like basically get through the fucking hearing, genuinely. And so, like, you know, imagine like the judge literally like basically MFing the other attorneys, and it's like, "Oh, your turn," and you have to stand up. You're like, "Hey, so I'm here on behalf of douche canoe number 3. He doesn't really want to talk either." Like, fuck. Oh, that's tough. But yeah, everyone always asks me like, "Oh, how do you argue without crying as an attorney?" I'm like, literally these scenarios, like, we are put into horrifying scenarios where the judge is literally going to yell at you regardless, and you just got to sit and bear it. Heather Rosing was one of those attorneys appearing on behalf of Paul Duffy, Angela Van Den Hemel, and Prenda Law. I think Angela was the paralegal, okay? She rose at this point after Judge is already furious and asks Judge Wright for an opportunity to present about a half hour of argument on the points in his order to show cause. Judge Wright was uninterested in hearing legal argument as opposed to testimony or evidence. Heather Rosing said, quote, "My clients have a right to a reasonable opportunity to be heard." Judge Wright thunders back, "Excuse me?" Probably thinking, not unreasonably, that Miss Rosing's clients could have filed briefs in advance to address any legal arguments they had, and that Miss Rosing's clients have been evading questions for months. Judge Wright began to count off the questions he wanted answered. Quote, "I'm looking for facts," he said. He wanted to know who directs Prenda Law's litigation efforts, who makes its decisions, whether there is another Alan Cooper, and what happens with the money Prenda Law makes from settlements. Ooh. Miss Rosing answered, wisely and properly, I might add, that she could not personally testify to those things. Why, Judge Wright demanded, did Prenda Law conceal its attorney's financial interest in these cases? Quote, "There's no evidence that they have an interest," Miss Rosing protested. "Excuse me?" Judge Wright boomed even louder. Like, excuse me? I love that. Excuse me? He literally said excuse me like 4 fucking times at this point. Were there windows they would have rattled? Allegedly. Okay, according to everyone in the courtroom. They would have rattled. Quote, "Have you read Paul Hansmeier's deposition?" he demanded, referring to the bizarre deposition that Paul Hansmeier gave previously in which he failed to explain Prenda Law's shadowy owners or flow of funds. "I have," Miss Rosing said, but stood her ground. Miss Rosing suggested that she might file a brief addressing her arguments. "Do so," said Judge Wright acidly. "We're done," he said abruptly, and stormed off the bench. The whole hearing took about 15 minutes. Oh shit. By invoking their Fifth Amendment rights, Prenda Law principals John Steele, Paul Hansmeier, Paul Duffy, and paralegal Angela Van Den Hemel have avoided incriminating themselves. In light of the evidence adduced, evidence that Prenda Law may have created sham entities to conceal their lawyers' interests in the porno trolling collective litigation and may have misled courts across the country, that was very likely the smart thing to do. I might have advised it myself if I were representing them, or with respect to their individual exposure to potential criminal consequences. It stops things from getting worse, which is often an attorney's first task. Correct. And I just want to say, like as an aside, but also not an aside, completely related, their invocation of their Fifth Amendment right was completely warranted and lawful, permissible, okay? It was. Yes, the attorney who gave the reason for why they were invoking it was like a little off the fucking mark, you know what I mean? But, okay, that's only protecting like your individual right, okay? A company, an LLC, cannot invoke their Fifth Amendment right. They don't have that. They don't have a Fifth Amendment right. We do as people. Companies, corporations do not, okay? So its invocation by all of these individuals is good for the individual, bad for the overall scheme. It will have catastrophic consequences for the Prenda Law enterprise, which cannot possibly continue. When they appeared today, John Steele, Paul Hansmeier, and Paul Duffy were not merely individuals facing the overwhelming power of the state. They were also officers of the court, and according to the testimony of Brett Gibbs, the very attorneys who directed nationwide litigation for the Prenda Law porn enterprise. Judge Wright ordered them to answer for the conduct of that enterprise in his court, as he had the right and power to do. Their invocation of their Fifth Amendment rights in the face of that order is utterly unprecedented in this person's experience as a lawyer, but also in mine. In effect, the responsible lawyers for a law firm conducting litigation before a court have refused to explain that litigation to the court on the grounds that doing so could expose them to criminal prosecution. Like, queens, like, you filed these complaints. Like, what the fuck? However well-grounded in the individual rights of Steele, Hansmeier, and Duffy, the invocation eviscerates their credibility as lawyers and the credibility of Prenda Law as an enterprise in every court across the country. Essentially, what the defense attorneys in this litigation did, okay, in this case before Judge Wright, okay, what was it? His name's Pitts. They filed notices in every single case that was pending nationwide with Prenda Law affiliated that basically said, hey, just letting you know, judges and juries, the attorneys directing this litigation just took the Fifth rather than answering another judge's questions about their conduct in this litigation campaign. So do with that what you will. Kisses, you know what I mean? Like, fucking period, okay? Literally the martyrs, the heroes, give them a cape. The porno trolling cape, okay? They killed the porn trolls and didn't even need to use a phallic-shaped device to do it. Moreover, Prenda Law lawyers may face adverse consequences from the invocation of their Fifth Amendment rights in Alan Cooper's counterclaim against them. Because basically, okay, because they're a bunch of egotistical douche canoe idiots, morons, all right? After Alan Cooper, attorney, submitted that letter that I read to you guys in pretty much a bunch of fucking court cases, pretty much any court case where Ingenuity was involved and AF Holding was involved, basically saying, hey, I'm not the fucking goddamn CEO. I don't know who this Alan Cooper is, but it's not fucking me. And if it is me, then they forged my shit, okay? Prenda Pringle ass law firm filed a defamation and libel lawsuit against Alan Cooper. Can we all pause for a minute and just think about that for like a hot fucking second? Okay, let's just like think and breathe on that. Let's just like think on these things, right? TOTT, think on these things. What in the fresh hell are you thinking? Out of your noggin, out of your brain? Why in the entire universe of world would you ever, in response to someone literally calling out your illegal bullshit, saying, hey, you forged my fucking signature, by the way, you say, oh, I'm going to file a lawsuit against you for defamation and libel because you're wrong. I didn't do that. You literally did. You really did. And, right, them submitting, like, Alan Cooper submitting these fucking letters, it's not like he was, like, filing a lawsuit against them. He totally could have at that point, but it's not like he did that yet. That's my thing, is, like, you're like, so that Alan Cooper said, okay, he had this defamation lawsuit filed against him for literally speaking the truth. So he said, okay, bet, hold my beer, and files a counterclaim in that lawsuit against everyone, their mother, their dog, their cat, their sister, saying, y'all fucking forged my signature. Y'all fucking lied. Want damages. Like, you just woke the beat. Like, you're so dumb. You are so dumb. Essentially, a defendant's exercise of the right to remain silent, okay, your Fifth Amendment pull, okay, your push your pull, cannot be used against him or her in a criminal case, but it often can in a civil case. So you mean Alan Cooper's counterclaim that they forged the signature of him to be the CEO of all these companies? He can say, hey, look at this evidence that they fucking pled the fifth on whether or not Alan Cooper exists. Yeah, that proves my point. That can be used in a civil case. Don't you love how the law works, you dumb fucking assholes? Like, Prenda Law has done anything but law, I think, in the last however many years, all right? Amazing, perfect, gorgeous, beautiful, perf. Some inquiries will come quickly. In the Northern District of California, where Prenda Law's Paul Duffy is fighting Morgan Pitts' demand for attorney's fees in a case Prenda Law tried to dismiss, Paul Duffy has asked to appear by telephone, but Judge Edward Chen has rejected the request and ordered Duffy to appear in person on April 18, 2013. So essentially, like, all of these judges are catching on. Okay, they're all calling each other up. They're all hopping on their Zoom, hanging out with each other, right? I'm sure they had a big fucking conference call group chat where they were like, okay, hey everyone. So my name is Judge Wright. I just created this group chat. We're gonna call it the Prenda Pringles. And this is just a group chat of every single judge on any fucking case with Prenda Law involved in the entire country. Oh my God, hi, how are you? Oh my God, how's Florida? Amazing, great, perfect. Oh my God, cool. Anywho, I just wanted to let y'all know that they're fucking out of their minds. They're all lying their fucking asses off, probably for sure. So anytime you want to like pull the plug, pull the trig, you should do it. You should do it and force them to come physically fly to you, because who knows who's going to really be on the phone if they appear by phone. Thank you. Good luck, you guys. Kisses. See you at Christmas. Like, you're fucked. Okay. I am going to now read from Judge Wright's order after this hearing where they all, right, pled the fifth. He starts this order issuing sanctions against Prenda Law and all of these bitches, okay, with the quote from Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan, 1982 movie, okay, specifically a quote from Spock. It says, quote, "The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few." Plaintiffs have outmaneuvered the legal system. They have discovered the nexus of antiquated copyright laws, paralyzing social stigma, and unaffordable defense costs, and they exploit this anomaly by accusing individuals of illegally downloading a single pornographic video. Then they offer to settle for a sum calculated to be just below the cost of a bare bones defense. For these individuals, resistance is futile. Most reluctantly pay rather than have their names associated with illegally downloading porn. Also, you guys, what I also learned is that some of these demand letters that Prenda Law would send out would also threaten to ask the person's address, right? Like, they know the person's address, okay? They would threaten the person who they were sending this letter to that if they didn't pay up, they would ask their neighbors, loved ones, and employers about this porn download as part of their investigation, as just another layer of a threat to embarrass them. Okay. So now, again, Judge Wright, quote, "So now copyright laws originally designed to compensate starving artists allow starving attorneys in this electronic media era to plunder the citizenry. This order is about to go off." Like, it's already, this is the intro. I'm obsessed. "Plaintiffs do have a right to assert their intellectual property rights so long as they do it correctly. But plaintiffs' filing of cases using the same boilerplate complaint against dozens of defendants raised the court's alert. It was when the court realized plaintiffs engaged their cloak of shell companies and fraud that the court went to battle stations." The way that Judge Wright decided to pull a Star Trek angle for this entire opinion has me on the floor. And I know all of you would think, why haven't you quoted this for Iconic Court Transcripts? You have to have the layers of context to understand how iconic it is. Am I right? Like, am I right? Like, you are sanctioning a porno trolling collective, Prenda Pringle law firm, for having sham companies and producing porn in their own fucking name, which you'll find out more about later, okay? Not like later. I promise you that after this order, this is like the big, shebang order. After this order, I'm basically going to summarize what fucking happened to these motherfuckers and also what we also found out about their porno production. Amazing. So, Gibbs's behavior in this porno trolling collective, which is where we got that word, okay, that phrase, love you, Judge Wright, was controlled by several attorneys under whom other individuals also took their orders. Because it was conceivable that these attorneys and others were culpable for Gibbs's conduct, the court ordered these parties to appear. Based on the evidence presented on the papers and through sworn testimony, the court finds the following facts, including those based on adverse inferences drawn from Steele, Hansmeier, Duffy, and Van den Hemmel's blanket refusal to testify. So, essentially, even though your you invoke your right to remain silent, Fifth Amendment privilege, amazing, cannot be used against you in a criminal proceeding. In a civil proceeding, the way that it's used against you is that an adverse inference can be reached by your invocation of that right. So you remaining silent for purposes of civil proceeding, the judge can draw the inference that means you were lying about everything. Does that make sense? Amazing. Steele, Hansmeier, and Duffy are attorneys with shattered law practices. Seeking easy money, they conspired to operate this enterprise and formed the AF Holdings and Ingenuity 13 entities, among others, including Sunlust. Has like a spicy S, lust. For the sole purpose of litigating copyright infringement porn lawsuits. They created these entities to shield the principals, okay, aka Steele, Hansmeier, and Duffy, from potential liability and to give an appearance of legitimacy. AF Holdings and Ingenuity 13 have no assets other than several copyrights to pornographic movies. There are no official owners or officers for these two offshore entities, but the principals, Steele, Hansmeier, and Duffy, are the de facto owners and officers. Steele, Hansmeier, and Duffy started their porn copyright enforcement crusade in about 2010. Their litigation strategy consisted of monitoring BitTorrent download activity of their copyrighted pornographic movies, recording IP addresses of the computers downloading the movies, filing suit in federal court to subpoena ISPs for the identity of the subscribers, and sending cease and desist letters to the subscribers offering to settle each copyright infringement claim for about $4,000. Duh. This nationwide strategy was highly successful because of statutory copyright damages, the pornographic subject matter, and the high cost of litigation. Most defendants settled. These settlement funds resided in the accounts of Steele, Hansmeier, and Duffy, and not in accounts belonging to AF Holdings or Ingenuity 13. No taxes have been paid on this income. Millions of dollars in settlement money. Damn, are they dumb. For defendants that refused to settle, Steele, Hansmeier, and Duffy engaged in vexatious litigation designed to coerce settlement. These lawsuits were filed using boilerplate complaints based on a modicum of evidence calculated to maximize settlement profits by minimizing costs and effort. Prenda Law has shown little desire to proceed in these lawsuits when faced with a determined defendant, aka anyone who said, hold up, this seems fishy. They were like, never mind, we're dismissal. Bye. Instead of litigating, they dismissed the case. When pressed for discovery, the principals offer only disinformation, even to the court. The principals have hired willing attorneys like Gibbs to come in and work with Prenda Law to prosecute these cases. Though Gibbs is culpable for his own conduct before the court, Prenda Law directed his actions. In some instances, Gibbs operated within narrow parameters given to him by Prenda Law, whom he called senior attorneys. Okay, the principals. Fucking Steele, Hansmeier, and Duffy. The principals, Steele, Hansmeier, and Duffy, maintained full control of the entire copyright litigation operation. They dictated the strategy to employ in each case, ordered their hired lawyers and witnesses to provide disinformation about the cases and the nature of their operation, and possessed all financial interests in the outcome of each case. Like, literally had the sole interest. Like, my guy, like, paper trail. The paper trail was literally, there wasn't even a crumb in between the A point and B point. It was literally like the trail was just an arrow and a sign that said, you're here. Come on. Prenda Law stole the identity of Alan Cooper of Minnesota. They fraudulently signed the copyright assignment for Popular Demand, okay, the porn video that they named, okay, presumably called, using Alan Cooper's signature without his authorization, holding him out to be an officer of AF Holdings. Alan Cooper is not an officer of AF Holdings and has no affiliation with Prenda Law other than his employment as a groundskeeper for John Steele. There is no other person named Alan Cooper related to AF Holdings or Ingenuity 13. Prenda Law, all of these principals have demonstrated their willingness to deceive not just this court, but other courts where they have appeared. Their representations about their operations, relationships, and financial interests have varied from feigned ignorance to misstatements to outright lies. But this deception was calculated so that the court would grant plaintiffs early discovery requests, thereby allowing plaintiffs to identify defendants and exact settlement proceeds from them. With these granted requests, plaintiffs borrow the authority of the court to pressure settlement. Sanctions. Next heading is sanctions. Judge Wright says, quote, "The court is not as troubled by their lack of reasonable investigation into these subscribers as by their cover-up. Gibbs argued that a deep inquiry was performed prior to filing these lawsuits, yet these arguments are not credible and do not support Gibbs's conclusion. Instead, Gibbs's arguments suggest a hasty after-the-fact investigation and a shoddy one at that. It is simply not economically viable to properly prosecute the illegal download of a single copyrighted video for you to have really researched all these people beforehand, like you didn't." Judge Wright enters a sanction order, okay, awarding attorney's fees and also recommending prosecutorial action, against the Prenda Law attorneys, okay, for their misconduct, for their fraud, okay, for their fucking fraud. This turns into exactly what you think it does, which is that all of them not only get the legal book thrown at them, but also the criminally legal book thrown at them. Is that even did that even work? Say that it worked. It's fine, it worked. Because judges continued throughout 2013 to recommend all of these Prenda Law principles to the prosecutor's office, okay, for prosecutorial action. They were like, yo, U.S. attorney, you should fucking, like, federal charges. And mind you, too, in the midst of all of this that I hope is covered in, like, the biopic, like, documentary, they tried to appeal Judge Wright's order for sanctions, and the appellate argument was so bad and embarrassing. And like the hearing is a transcript in and of itself, right? Of them being like, no. Like it's obscene, right? And the appellate, like basically the Ninth Circuit was like, can you be serious? Like what in the fuck? Okay, like everything's hilarious, okay? Because they're never out of the game, which I guess I can respect, but like you just keep losing worse, right? You just keep losing worse and worse and worse. Of course, John Steele gives an interview with a really edited, face-tuned fucking headshot that I'm gonna put up here real quick, because what in the actual fuck is this, right? Like what the hell? Like you guys are gonna fucking laugh. What in the actual fuck is this headshot? It like what is the background? A garage? Like bro, what the fuck is this? It looks like AI, okay? John Steele. He gives an interview to Ars Technica in an article from May 2013, and the article's titled, quote, "Look, you may hate me. 90 minutes with John Steele, porn troll." John Steele says that Judge Wright's Star Trek references were beneath the dignity of the court. He's basically complaining in this interview that the Star Trek references were a little like, were just inappropriate. Can you be fucking serious? Like, oh my God. I love that the article calls him a porn troll because that's what he is. This is what John Steele says, quote, "I mean, it starts out with a reference to Star Trek. Here's a general rule of thumb. Anytime there's more references to Star Trek than to case law, I think that's a bad sign. I counted over 30 references to Star Trek myself. I just think that this is a serious matter." I mean, it is, and you got your shit handed to you via Star Trek reference. Like, that's crazy. "This judge is completely biased against our type of litigation. Anyone who's researched this judge knows it. They tried to change the narrative. Nobody I'm aware of, including myself, has ever forged Alan Cooper's signature. That is a pretty outrageous claim." Babes, whoever at this point was representing John Steele absolutely quit. like after this shit. Number one rule of client fight club, okay, if you are the client to an attorney, is shut the fuck up and don't give fucking interviews unless your attorney is literally next to you holding your fucking ear in hand and mouth shut. Thank you. In a 2013 motion filed by our boy Graham Seifert, okay, the Florida lawyer in the Florida cases defending some of these John Does, he was still involved, right? These cases were still going on. Specifically, Sunlust Pictures versus Wen and First Time Videos versus Oppold. A Florida man named Paul Oppold in the latter case was accused of downloading an unauthorized copy of a First Time Videos pornographic film, which was being represented by Prenda Law. In that case, Seifert ended up filing a damning motion. It includes a 31-page affidavit and related exhibits that offered a detailed analysis and a startling conclusion about one of the primary Prenda Law lawyers, John Steele. Remember when I was talking about how they were producing their own porn? Buckle up. According to the filing, Steele is the most probable candidate for the identity of Pirate Bay user Shark MP4. Shark MP4 was the originator of the only found public releases of Ingenuity 13 works prior to the creation of naughtyhotties.com. Some works were shared by Shark MP4 prior to the registered copyright date with indications of access to a higher resolution copy. Therefore, further inquiry would need to be made upon John Steele and all those within his control to identify if he is infringing the copyrights of Ingenuity 13, AF Holdings, and others through the Pirate Bay user Shark MP4. Essentially, they traced the infringement originating, okay, the original infringement of these videos to John Steele because he's an idiot and used his own fucking IP address. I die. If you guys look up the Wikipedia page for Prenda Law, you won't even get halfway before you're like, wait, what in the actual? It is so long, so detailed. There are so many fucking cases that blew up, okay? But that was like the main shebang, all right? That fucking happened. Obviously, other cases for other fucking shell entities, Guava LLC, et cetera, also blew up in their faces in hilarious other ways that could absolutely be covered by the biopic, et cetera. We know, okay? Ultimately, Prenda Law's scheme, their business model, was described as a porno trolling collective whose business model relied on deception and which resembled most closely a conspiracy and racketeering enterprise, referring to RICO, okay? Our federal anti-racketeering law. In 2019, Steele and Hansmeier both pleaded guilty in federal court to a range of criminal charges related to and including extortion, mail and wire fraud, and fraudulent conduct in relation to their fucking scheme, with substantial sums of their criminal proceeds ordered to be reimbursed. Okay, the millions of dollars that they took from those people in settlements, yeah, reimbursed. Steele received a reduced sentence. He was facing up to 10 years in prison, okay? And of course, he received a reduced sentence of 5 years due to his cooperation with the investigation. But Hansmeier, Paul Hansmeier, who had refused to cooperate, was ultimately sentenced to 14 years in federal prison. Hansmeier is still in federal prison to this day, in addition to Steele. They are behind bars. But of course, because the shenanigans are going to shenan again, this is what they've been doing from prison. This is an article posted, January 2023. Paul Hansmeier, who is serving a 14-year prison sentence for filing sham copyright infringement lawsuits and extorting money from victims, has lost an attempt to enforce copyrights from prison. In a ruling Monday, a federal judge rejected Hansmeier's request to prevent the government from enforcing mail, wire fraud, and money laundering laws against him. My rebuttal for today's episode, finally, after that saga and a half, is that if you're going to extort people for money, which is illegal, doing it in the realm and in the area of porn is horrible, but admittedly hilarious. And Lord, do we pray that if and when anyone else does this type of shit, they are at least in front of a judge who writes scathing orders and uses really funny references. Hopefully me next time, right? The scheme comes back around for another firm, right? Maybe it'll be Prenda Law. Wouldn't that be amazing? If I'm a judge by that time, hop on your Zoom, people, because it's going to be a doozy of an order. It's going to be hilarious. Okay. And yeah, if you're going to commit fraud and steal people's names and film porn with yourself in it and then release that to the interwebs and get people to download it, maybe don't be such a jackass about it, right? Maybe quit while you're ahead. That is my rebuttal for today's episode. I don't even want to know how many times I said the word porn. I know that whatever summary roundup that I can even piece together for TikTok from this episode is going to indubitably be flagged, be taken down. But in the event that it isn't, amazing, perfect, gorgeous, thank you so much for listening. Follow us on Instagram. Follow me on TikTok if you don't already, on Instagram as well. I couldn't be more jazzed about this episode. I hope that you enjoyed. Be safe. Love you. Log off. Bye, guys.